Have you ever dreamed of a place where games become real, a world where anything is possible tonight? We begin a journey into such a world where sleep and imagination walk side by side. So close your eyes and follow the path where every turn brings a new secret. There was once a boy named Leo who loved the sky every night. He would lie on the soft ground, his hands behind his head, his eyes gently resting on the stars above. He would count them slowly, 1, 2, 3, and feel peace settle over him like a warm blanket. Stars felt like friends to Leo. They never rushed, never shouted. They simply glowed, calm and still. But one night something was different. As he watched the sky, he saw one star begin to move, not falling fast like a shooting star, but floating, slowly, gently drifting across the sky like a leaf on a quiet river. Leo sat up, his breath soft and steady, his eyes fixed on the light. The star seemed to call him without sound, without words, but with a feeling that touched his heart. Closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them, the world had changed. It was standing in a wide silver field. The grass was soft and cool. The sky above was filled with soft colors and glowing stars. The star he had seen was now just above him, moving gently through the air. He began to follow, walked without worry, his feet bare, each step light as a feather. The star led him through a forest where the leaves sparkled like tiny lights. The trees swayed gently like they were breathing with him. The air was warm, quiet. He came to a small river. The water was clear and glowing. He stepped across on smooth stones that shined under his feet. On the other side, a hill rose slowly under the star. He walked up, his body relaxed, his thoughts quiet, his heart steady. At the top of the hill, the star stopped. It hovered in the air, bright but gentle. Leo looked up and smiled. Star slowly rose higher until it became part of the sky. Once more he lay down in the grass, the wind soft on his skin. He watched the sky, now filled with peaceful light. His eyes grew heavy, his breathing slow, and even the world around him calm and still. And as he drifted into sleep, he knew he would always be able to find his way back to the sky, to the stars, to the stars, to the quiet peace of following a dream. There once was a girl named Leela who loved the night sky. Every evening she would sit by her window with a brush in her hand. She would dip the brush in water and move it across the air as if she were painting the stars. Her family laughed softly and said Leela was a dreamer, but Leela believed that her brush had quiet magic, that if she painted with enough love, the sky might listen. No night. The moon looked pale and quiet. Its light was soft and fading. Leela felt something stir in her heart. She opened her window wider and stepped onto the balcony. She looked up and whispered, "I will help you shine again." She closed her eyes and breathed in slowly. When she opened them again, she was no longer in her room. She was standing on a smooth silver bridge floating in the sky. Clouds drifted below her like rivers of mist. Stars danced all around her, and just ahead was the moon, close, gentle, waiting. Leela held her brush. It glowed with a soft light. She dipped it into the air and colors bloomed from the bristles, silver blue, soft gold. With each stroke the moon began to glow. Little by little the light returned, not bright, not loud, but calm and full of peace. At the moon did not speak, but Leela could feel its joy like a song played deep inside her heart. She moved slowly, painting with care. Each line made the sky more still. Each color made the world more soft. When she finished, she stepped back. The moon now glowed like a dream. It shimmered with the colors of kindness and sleep. The stars twinkled around it like they were saying thank you. Leela smiled. She placed her brush in the sky, where it turned into a new star, a small glowing point of peace that would always be there to remind the night rests. Closed her eyes again. When she opened them, she was back in her room. The moon outside was full and calm. The night was quiet, and Leela felt a deep warmth in her chest. She lay down in bed, pulled the blanket close, and let sleep carry her gently into the soft painted sky. In a quiet village surrounded by hills and clouds, there was a forest where the trees seemed to listen. People said the forest was magical, not loud or wild, but gentle and still. And if you walked into it with a calm heart, you might hear it whisper your dreams. A boy named Orin lived near the edge of that forest. He was curious but kind. Every night before bed, he would sit by his window and stare at the tall trees. He would wonder what the forest would say to him if he ever went inside. At night, the sky was soft and silver, the moon low and quiet. Orin felt a tug in his chest like something was calling. He slipped on his coat and stepped outside, bare feet touching the cool grass. The forest was waiting, its path open and glowing with soft light. As he walked between the trees, he felt the air grow still. No wind, no sound, just peace. The leaves above shimmered, and with every step it felt like the forest was breathing with him. After a while he reached a small clearing. In the center was a round stone, smooth and warm. He sat down and closed his eyes, his breathing slow and light, and then he heard its soft words, not spoken but felt like a gentle breeze inside his mind. They were not clear, not full sentences, but feelings, pictures, memories. Apesh saw himself standing on a hill with arms open wide, a sky full of stars above. He saw laughter and kindness. He saw a path opening in front of him, bright and safe. The forest whispered again, not to tell him what to do, but to remind him of the dreams he already held, the ones hidden deep under noise and worry, dreams that had waited quietly for this moment, sat for a long time, Just breathing, just listening. The whispers grew softer then faded, leaving behind a calm like soft snow. Oren stood up. He felt light and steady. The forest gently guided him back. The path glowed with soft moss, and by the time he reached the edge, the sky was turning to morning, a soft pale gold in the east. Lay back in his bed with eyes full of wonder, and as he drifted off to sleep, he heard one last quiet whisper, a promise that the forest would always be there, whenever he needed to remember who he truly was. There was once a town where a train station stood in silence all day. The tracks were clean, the lamps always glowing, but the train never came when the sun was up. People said it only moved at night, only when the world was quiet enough to hear the sound of its dreams. A girl named Emma lived just across from that station. Every morning she would look at the empty platform and wonder where the train would go. No one in the town had ever seen it arrive, no one except those who listened carefully. In the dark only night, Emma could not sleep. She sat near her window, with a blanket wrapped around her. The moon was high, the wind still, and then she heard Ita's soft hum, a sound like a lullaby played far away. The rails began to shimmer, a gentle light rolled through the mist, and from the fog came the train, long and silver, with windows glowing like fireflies. Emma watched with wide eyes. The door opened slowly, and before she knew it, her feet were moving, her breath calm, her heart steady. She stepped aboard inside the train. Everything was quiet. The seats were soft, like clouds, and the walls shimmered with pictures that moved like dreams. Emma sat by a window and felt the train begin to glide, not fast, not loud, just smooth and steady, like it was floating on a river of stars. Train past forests where the trees swayed in slow motion, fields of glowing flowers, mountains covered in moonlight. Each place seemed to be part of a story, a memory, or maybe a dream someone had left behind. Felt safe. She leaned her head against the window, her thoughts soft and open. She saw reflections of people smiling, a child chasing bubbles, an old man watching the sea. The train was full of moments, some from the past, some yet to come. A voice as gentle as wind spoke from nowhere. You are on the dreamline. This train moves only at night. It travels through the space between sleep and thought, between memory and magic. Each stop brings peace, each turn brings light. Train passed through a tunnel made of stars, and when it came out on the other side, Emma saw a city made of glass towers that hummed with quiet energy. Gardens growing in the air, bridges made of mist. It felt like home, but also like something she had never seen before. Train slowed, the voice returned. You may rest here if you wish, or you may ride a little longer. Emma smiled, but she felt her eyes growing heavy, her body soft and warmed. Train gently returned to the mist. The stars faded into clouds, and when she opened her eyes again, she was back in her bed, the sun just starting to rise, but her heart still full of wonders. Whispered, "Thank you," and in the distance, the sound of the train whispered back as if saying, "We will return only at night, only when the world is quiet, only when you are ready to dream again." On the edge of a quiet island stood a lighthouse, tall and white, its light shining gently over the ocean. But unlike other lighthouses, this one never blinked. Its light was always steady, always calm, and some said it could see into dreams. A boy named Kai lived on that island. He liked to sit near the lighthouse at night, the waves soft against the shore, the air full of salt and peace. He wondered why the light never blinked, never paused, just kept shining as if it had something to protect. Evening, as the stars began to wake, Kai walked closer than ever before. The lighthouse door was open. A soft golden glow came from inside. He stepped in without fear, his breath slow and light like the sea around him. Stairs were wide and smooth. They spiraled gently upward with each step. Kai felt quieter, his thoughts drifting like feathers. He reached the top and found a room full of light, not bright but warm, soft, safe. The center was a round window. Through it, he could see the ocean. But it looked different now, more peaceful, more still, like the sea was asleep. Sat in the quiet, and the lighthouse began to hum. Not loudly, just a soft note like the first string of a lullaby. It told him stories without words, stories of ships that had passed in the fog, dreamers who had found their way home, and the quiet strength of something that simply stays. Light never blinked because it did not need to. It was always there, watching, gently shining through every storm, not to call attention but to promise that no one was ever truly lost. Kai sat for a long time, his eyes soft, his heart calm. When he finally stood, the light did not dim, but it felt like it was smiling in its own quiet way. He walked back down the stairs, feeling softer now, and when he stepped outside, the night wrapped around him like a soft wave. He lay on the sand, the lighthouse glowing above, and as his eyes closed, he knew the light would still be shining steady and kind, guiding him gently into sleep. In a quiet land far away, there was a mountain that seemed to sleep during the day. Its rocks warm under the sun, its slopes silent and still, but when the stars appeared, the mountain began to breathe in it, with sound, not with movement, but with something softer, a rhythm in the air, a slow deep pulse like the earth was dreaming. A girl named Noah lived in a small cabin nearby. Each night she would sit at her window watching the shape of the mountain against the dark sky. She felt the calm reach out to her like the mountain was saying, "You are safe, you are home." One night, Noah decided to walk closer. The air was cool, the path soft under her feet, and the stars above like tiny lanterns. As she reached the base of the mountain, she felt it, the gentle breath rising through the ground, slow and deep, like the whole world was exhaling. Sat on a smooth rock, closed her eyes and listened. breath of the mountains seemed to carry dreams, memories from long ago, a stream of voices without words, just feelings, warmth, peace, a story told without sound, imagined animals sleeping in secret caves, trees listening to the wind, old stones remembering the touch of time and the stars. Above, watching, gentle-eyed mountain was not speaking but sharing a quiet comfort that wrapped around her like a soft blanket made of night air and stillness. Noah stayed for a long time, not thinking, not wondering, just breathing with the mountain. When she stood up, she felt lighter, calmer, as if the mountain had shared part of its strength with her, not loud or sharp, but steady, kind, eternal. She walked back home, her steps slow and easy, and when she lay down in bed, she felt the same rhythm in her chest, the soft breath of something ancient and gently, and as she closed her eyes, she knew the mountain was still breathing, just like her, guiding her into the quiet world of dreams. In the middle of a quiet valley, there was a library unlike any other. It had no walls, no doors, and no shelves. Instead, it had trees, tall and wide, with leaves that shimmered like pages. The wind would blow and stories would fall gently to the ground, waiting to be read. A boy named Elliot once wandered into this valley. He had been walking for hours through fields and soft hills, looking for a place to rest. He saw the trees before he knew what they were, their trunks dark and smooth, their branches reaching high. He stepped closer and saw the leaves covered in letters, lines that moved like quiet whispers. Picked one up, and as he read the words, the world around him began to shift. Was standing in a boat floating down a glowing river, lanterns above the sky full of stars. He smiled, knowing this was a dream, but it felt warm and real, like a memory he had never made. As the boat drifted, he saw other trees along the riverbank, their branches filled with more stories, some soft, some full of wonder, each one a new world waiting to be shed. Boat slowed near a small hill. A path led upward where another tree stood, alone, its bark glowing gently. Elliot stepped onto the path and climbed slowly, his breath calm, his steps light. At the top, he sat beneath the glowing tree, and as he rested his back against its trunk, he felt the story grow around him like roots wrapping gently around his dreams. Closed his eyes, and the tree whispered a tale just for him, a story made of all his hopes, his quiet wishes, his calmest thoughts. When he opened his eyes, the tree had dropped a new leaf into his lap, one that shimmered with silver light. He placed it in his pocket, stood up, and looked back at the valley. The trees swayed gently, the stories waiting, growing. Olivier walked back down the sky, slowly fading into night, and when he lay down beneath a tree, his head resting on soft moss, he felt his thoughts turn quiet. Library would always be there, a place where dreams became stories, and stories became home. In a quiet village with narrow streets and stone walls, there lived a small gray cat named Misty. She did not belong to anyone, but everyone knew her. She would appear on windowsills, walk across rooftops, and disappear without a sound. What people did not know was that Misty had a secret. Each night when the village slept, she would find a mirror, a still smooth surface, and she would step right through it. Inside the mirrors was a different world, a place of soft colors, floating lanterns, and stairways that curled through the sky. It was not loud or strange, just quiet and full of wonder. Misty walked these mirrored lands with silent pause. She would leap from one reflection to another, a puddle on the street, a glass door, even the surface of a still lake, each one a doorway, each one a path. In this world, time moved slowly. The moon was always high, and the stars hummed softly like old lullabies. Flowers glowed with silver light, and trees whispered stories in the wind. At night, Misty found a mirror she had never seen before. It was tall and round, standing in the middle of an empty garden. She stepped through and found herself in a hallway made of clouds, soft beneath her feet, cool air brushing her fur. The hallway led to a wide room. In the center was a quiet pool, and above it floated a light, gentle and calm like the heart of a dream. Misty sat beside the pool, her tail wrapped around her, and the light slowly moved down. It touched her forehead and showed her every place she had ever visited, every child she had comforted, every soft rooftop she had slept on under the stars. It was not a memory, it was a gift, a quiet thank you from the world of dreams. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, she was back in the village, perched on a windowsill as the sun began to rise, the mirror behind her still and quiet, as if nothing had passed through it. But Albert, Misty knew, and the world behind the glass would wait for her every night, ready for another silent journey through dreams. In a town where the skies were soft and the clouds moved slowly, there was a special kind of rain. It did not fall with thunder or storm. It came gently, like a whisper, like a memory. People in the town said the rain could remember things it would to fall when someone missed a friend, or when an old story needed to be told again, and sometimes it would call someone outside, just to remind them they were never alone. A girl named Mara lived in that town. She liked to sit by the window with her book in her lap, watching the drops gather on the glass, each one sliding down in a quiet race. She liked how the world turned soft when the rain came, how everything seemed to slow down and breathe. Evening, the sky turned silver, a light wind moved through the trees, and the first drop landed on the window. Mara looked up and smiled, but tonight felt different. The sound of the rain felt close, almost like it was calling her. She stepped outside into the soft evening air. The rain was warm and gentle, not heavy, just enough to feel like a hug. Each drop seemed to say something, not with words, but with feelings, small, gentle feelings that brushed her heart. As she walked down the path, she began to remember a laugh she had forgotten, a song her grandmother used to hum, the way the world felt when she was very small and the rain meant play. The rain was telling her a story, but it was also Hirsch stood beneath a tree, where the leaves danced with the drops the light through the clouds made. The world Shimamara closed her eyes and listened, and in that quiet she heard her name. Not out loud, but inside, as if the rain had carried it from far away, as if it had always known. When she opened her eyes, the rain began to slow, the drops smaller, the sky lighter, the wind full of calm. She walked back home, each step light, each breath deep, and when she lay in bed that night, she could still hear the soft whisper of the rain, like it was resting beside her. Rain had remembered, and in doing so had helped her remember to. In a small town near the sea, there was a little shop full of forgotten things, old clocks, soft scarves, and shelves of books with pages turned gold. By time, in the corner of this shop hung an umbrella, plain and gray with a wooden handle, but everyone who touched it said the same thing. It felt like the wind was hiding inside. One day, a boy named Arlo walked into the shop. He was not looking for anything, just passing time, but when he saw the umbrella, his hand reached out on its own. The moment he held it, a breeze moved through the room, soft and playful, like the air had been waiting for him. Shopkeeper smiled without surprise. Some umbrellas bring shade, this one brings movement. That night Arlo stood outside with the umbrella in his hand. The sky was calm, the stars resting. He opened it slowly, and the moment the fabric spread wide, the wind came to life, not strong or loud, but smooth, like a song with no words. The umbrella lifted Arlo gently from the ground, not high, just enough to carry him above the rooftops. He floated like a leaf, light and calm. The world below, soft and glowing, passed over gardens full of night flowers, rivers that shimmered in the moonlight, clouds that drifted like pillows in the sky. The wind wrapped around him like a friend, steady and kind. As he floated, he saw other umbrellas in the distance, some red, some blue, some glowing like lanterns. They moved slowly, peacefully, each one carrying someone through the sleeping world. Wind guided him toward a hill where trees whispered dreams. He drifted down gently, feet touching the grass without a sound. He sat beneath one of the trees, the umbrella resting beside him. The wind, now a soft hush, closed his eyes, the breeze brushing his face, his thoughts calm, his breath deep. When he woke, he was back in his bed, the umbrella leaning beside the window, closed and quiet, but he could still feel the wind waiting, ready for the next quiet night. In a quiet attic above an old stone house, there stood a tall wooden clock. Its face was soft with faded numbers, its hands still and silent during the day, but at night, when the world was asleep, the clock would begin to tick. A girl named Sylvie lived in that house. She had always been curious about the clock, but no one in her family remembered where it had come from. Some said it had never worked, others said it only ticked for those who believed in dreams at night when the stars were clear. Sylvie climbed into the attic with a small lantern in her hand. The room was cool, the wooden floor smooth under her feet. She sat in front of the clock and waited. For a while there was only silence, but then a soft sound began, tick-tick, like a heartbeat made of time. With clock hands began to move slow and smooth, and as they turned, the room began to change. Walls faded into mist, the floor became a path of light, and Sylvie found herself walking through a garden made of stars. Flowers opened as she passed, each one glowing gently, whispering old lullabies with no words. In the center of the garden stood the clock, but now it was made of silver and glass. Its ticking clear like a song. With each tick a memory rose around her, a birthday wish, a quiet, the moment with her mother, the feeling of her hand on warm sand at the beach, not sharp, not loud, just soft and truth. Clock was not keeping time, was showing it gently, kindly, like turning pages in a book you love. Sylvie sat on the grass watching the hands move, her heart quiet, her breath slowed. When the last tick echoed across the garden, the stars faded into mist, the room returned, and the clock stood still once. Maresh walked back to bed, the ticking still in her ears, not loud, just enough to remind her that time in dreams is never lost, only waiting to be felt again. In a valley hidden between two quiet hills, there was a river that flowed without a sound during the day. It looked like any other stream, calm, clear and still, but when the moon rose and the stars filled the sky, a bridge would appear. No one knew who built it or why. It only showed itself at night, but some believed it was made of moonlight, woven with dreams and hidden thoughts. A boy named Lucas had heard stories about it from his grandmother. She said she had seen it once when she was very young, and that it had led her to a place where dreams could rest. In soft evening, Lucas stood by the river, the sky turning silver, clouds thin like lace. He waited quietly, his breath slow, his eyes steady on the water. Thin, he saw it a shimmer just above the surface, growing brighter with each heartbeat, until a bridge appeared, thin and glowing, stretching across the river like a ribbon of light. Lucas stepped onto it, his feet light, the bridge warm under his steps. Each plank glowed softly as he walked, and the river below reflected stars he had never seen before. On the other side of the bridge, he found a field filled with lanterns, each one floating in the air, gentle and still. They moved slowly, carried by the same wind that touched the surface of dreams. Walked among them, and each lantern glowed brighter as he passed inside each one. A tiny scene played, like a memory, a smile, a laugh, a quiet walk through the trees. They were small, beautiful moments, not loud, not grand, just real. Lucas stood in the center of the field, his heart full of calm, his eyes wide with wonder. He felt a peace that reached deep inside him, soft and quiet. When he looked back, the bridge was still there, glowing gently in the moonlight. He walked across slowly, each step carrying a piece of the dream with him. When he reached the other side, The bridge faded into mist, the river quiet again, and Lucas stood in the still night feeling as though the stars were closer than ever. Returned to bed closed his eyes, and as he drifted into sleep, he knew the bridge would return with the next moon, with the next dream. Deep in a gentle valley where the wind moved slow, there was a forest that seemed to sleep during the day. Its trees stood still, its leaves quiet, its paths soft and hidden beneath moss and shadow, but at dusk, just as the sun began to sink, the forest would yawn. It was not a loud sound, not a roar or a call, but a deep, slow hush, like the earth breathing out after a long day. A girl named Emery lived in a cottage near the edge of this forest. Every evening she would sit on her porch, a warm mug in her hands, and listen for the sound. On this evening, as the sky turned gold and lilac, she heard it again. A long, slow yawn drifting through the trees, and with it came a breeze that smelled of pine and wildflowers. Stood up and followed the sound, her bare feet brushing against soft grass, the path welcoming her with gentle steps inside the forest. Everything was soft and glowing, the trees stretched like they were waking from a nap, branches opening like arms, leaves rustling like whispers. Deeper Emery walked, the quieter the world became. No bird song, no footsteps, just the sound of the trees breathing slowly. She came to a clearing where fireflies danced, not quickly but slowly, their light pulsing in time with the heartbeat of the forest. Sat on a mossy rock and looked up at the sky through the tall trees, and as the last bit of sun faded, the forest began to hum, a low deep hum, not from one place but from everything, the trees, the air, the ground. It was a lullaby, not for her but for the world itself. Closed her eyes, feeling the hum move through her like a wave of peace, soft and still. Forest did not ask her to leave, but gently she knew it was time to go. She stood, whispered thank you, and followed the glowing path back home. As she reached her porch, the forest behind her sighed once more, settling into its night sleep, and Emery, wrapped in the warmth of Kautna sound, climbed into bed with each breath. She felt the forest around her quiet and calm, and she knew she would dream of soft trees and slow yawns and the peace that only the forest could bring. Far across the sea, where waves are soft and wide, there lived a whale who swam only at night. Her skin was deep blue, like the sky before dawn, and her eyes held the quiet of 1,000 dreams. The sailors called her the star whale because when the moon was high, tiny lights would rise from her back, floating gently into the sky as if she was giving stars to the night. No one knew where she came from, and she never swam near ships. Only the wind and the ocean knew her. A mere boy named Theo lived by the sea. He would sit on the sand each night, wrapped in a blanket, watching the horizon, hoping to see her swim past own. Evening, the waves were especially calm, the tide low and soft, the sky full of sleepy clouds, and there she was rising from the water like a dream, slow and silent, her massive shape glowing with pale light as she moved. Tiny glowing specks lifted into the sky one by one. Theo stood quietly, his breath still, his eyes wide with wonder. He could feel something in the air, a quiet kind of magic, not loud, not sharp, but soft and full of Persethi. Whale swam slowly along the shore, not close but not far, just enough for Theo to feel the rhythm of her motion like a lullaby sung by the sea. Followed along the beach, bare feet sinking in the cool sand, watching the stars lift into the sky, each one drifting up until they joined the rest above. He wondered where the whale went when she disappeared, what dreams she carried below the surface, and if she remembered the people who watched her in silence. As the last of the stars left her back, she dipped gently beneath the waves, the glow fading, the sea returning to its quiet self. Theo stayed on the beach, his heart calm, his eyes heavy with sleep, lay back looking at the sky now filled with stars she had given, and as his eyes closed, he felt the rhythm of the whale like the ocean, breathing soft and steady, gentle and truant. Somewhere far out in the quiet deep she swam on, carrying stars for another night. In a distant land where clouds touched the earth, there stood a mountain taller than all the rest. Its peak was always wrapped in mist, and the wind that circled it carried ancient songs to people in nearby villages. Believed the mountain could speak, but only at dawn, when the sun rose gently and the world was quiet. A boy named Yolan lived in one of those villages. He had grown up hearing stories from the elders about how the mountain whispered to those who listened with their hearts, not just their ears. In morning, while the stars still lingered in the sky, Yolan woke and stepped outside. The air was cool, the sky just beginning to glow with the soft blush of morning. Wrapped a shawl around his shoulders and made his way toward the path that led to the mountain. Persethi journey was slow but peaceful, the grass wet with dew, the birds still silent in their nesters. He climbed gently, rising ground. The sky turned from deep blue to soft lavender, and the clouds began to pull apart like curtains. Jolan reached a ridge where he could see the peak, still wrapped in mist but glowing now with the early light. Sat on a smooth rock and closed his eyes, breathing in the cold, clean air, and then he heard it, not a voice, not words, but a soft hum, low and full like the earth itself. Breathing out, wind carried it down the slopes, through the trees, across the stones, and into Jalan's chest. He could feel it more than hear it. Sound was not telling him what to do or what to think, it was simply there, present and real, like the morning itself. As the sun lifted over the horizon, the whisper grew warmer, lighter, as if the mountain was greeting the day, stretching after a long night of dreams. Julian opened his eyes, smiling gently, his heart still, his mind quiet. Sat there until the whisper faded with the warming wind, and the mountain returned to its silent strength. Walking back down the path, he did not feel alone. The whisper stayed with him, soft as sunlight, deep as stone, and Every dawn after Yolan would return to that spot to listen to the mountain's quiet greeting and to begin his day with peace. In the heart of a calm, quiet forest where trees stood tall and rivers moved like silver ribbons, an old owl lived in the hollow of an ancient oak, had lived there for many seasons through gentle rains and falling leaves, through the stillness of winter and the bloom of spring. But what made this owl special was not his feathers or his eyes. It was that he watched the wind while other animals listened to the rustling leaves or felt the cool breeze on their fur. The owl watched the wind as if it were a friend. Each night as the stars appeared, he would perch on the highest branch, his wings folded, his eyes wide and quiet. Wind would come soft and smooth like a visitor with no footsteps. It would move through the forest, slowly twisting through the trees, bending grass, brushing petals. The owl would follow it with his eyes, from the low bushes to the farthest treetops, never blinking, just watching. Sometimes the wind danced, circling around a tree, spinning leaves in a slow spiral. Other times it tiptoed across the forest floor, carrying the soft scent of pine and moss. Owl did not speak, he only watched, and instead watching, he understood the language of the breeze. He knew when a storm would come, when the air was heavy, when the wind moved fast and restless. He knew when the forest was at peace, because the wind would drift slowly, curling around every branch like a little lebion. Small Fox once asked the owl, "What do you see when you watch the wind?" And the owl replied in a voice calm and low, "I see how the world breathes. I see how the night listens. I see how every leaf says hello and goodbye, all in one soft sound." Then he turned back to the sky, his eyes following the earth. Fox sat beside him, trying to see, trying to listen without ears. And in the silence that followed, the wind came once more, carrying the quiet peace of the night, wrapping the owl and the fox in its soft, invisible wings. Stars above twinkled gently, the trees swayed in slow rhythm, and the owl, watching the wind, felt the world settle into sleep. In a quiet valley between gentle hills there was a garden unlike any other. No one knew who planted it, no one watered it, yet it always grew. But this garden did not bloom with the sun. Its flowers opened only when night fell and stars began to glow. In the skyby day, the garden looked still and plain, just soft soil and dark leaves. But when the moon rose, petals unfolded, colors shimmered, and a soft light filled the air. A girl named Lena lived nearby. She had always heard stories of the night garden, but no one in her village had ever seen it with her own eyes. On evening when the wind was soft and the clouds had drifted away, Lena decided to go find it. Walked along the path through the fields, past sleeping sheep and slow rivers, until she saw a gentle glow between the hills there. It was quiet and waiting, the garden blooming in the dark, flowers with silver edges, petals that sparkled like dew, vines that moved gently as if breathing, and all of it wrapped in a peaceful sun. Stepped into the garden slowly, her heart calm, her eyes wide with wonder. A flower brushed her arm, its touch soft like a whisper, and the glow from the petals made her skin look like starlight. Sat on the ground, feeling the cool earth below her, and listened to the soft rustle of night flowers opening all around. Glowbugs danced in the air, following no path, just drifting wherever the breeze carried them. The air smelled of jasmine and mint, fresh and sweet, like a memory you did not know. Lena leaned back, watching the sky through the petals above her, and for a moment it felt like time slowed down, as if the whole world paused to take a deep breath. She stayed there until her eyes began to close, her head resting gently on her arm as the garden continued to bloom and glow, surrounding her with stillness and light. When morning came, the flowers folded away, the glow faded, and the garden slept once more. Lena walked back home, her steps light, her mind quiet, carrying the peace of the night garden with her. And every evening after, she would return, not to see something new, but to feel the stillness, to rest in the glow of the garden that bloomed in the dark. There was once a lake so calm and still that people said it looked like the sky itself had fallen into it. They called it the Cloud Lake, because it mirrored every cloud, every star, and every moonbeam's eye. This lake lived a boy named Milo. He loved watching the water more than anything. He would sit for hours by the edge, his feet in the cool, clear waves, his eyes following the slow drift of clouds in the sky, and their perfect twins in the lake. An evening, as the sun was dipping behind the hills, Milo found a tiny boat resting near the shore. It was small and simple, made of pale smooth wood, just big enough for one. Looked around, but no one was there, so he stepped inside and pushed off gently. The boat floated easily, gliding like a feather on the surface of the lake. As he drifted farther from shore, the sky above turned deep blue and stars began to appear. One by one, the lake below copied every sparkle until it felt like Milo was floating through the sky itself. Leaned back in the boat, his hands resting on the sides, his eyes full of stars. The only sound was the quiet ripple of water, soft and slow like a lullaby. The boat moved without any effort, carried by the soft breath of night, past lily pads that glowed faintly in the dark, past gentle fish that shimmered just below the surface. Milo felt as though time had stopped, as if the world had become a dream, and he was floating gently through it, safe and still. Then a breeze came, cool and kind, wrapping around him like a soft blanket, and the stars above seemed to twinkle just for him. Closed his eyes, letting the quiet take him, letting the peace settle deep in his chest. Little boat floated on, slow and sure, cradled by the lake that held the sky and that soft space between water and stars. Milo drifted into sleep with a smile on his face, and the night holding him gently like a dream that never ends. In a quiet valley where the grass grew tall and soft, there lived a gentle deer with eyes full of wonder. She walked the forests and fields in silence, always listening, always still. But this deer did not listen for danger or the wind. She listened to the stars. Each night after the sun had gone, she would step into a small clearing where the trees opened just enough to show the whole sky. There she would stand with her head tilted back, ears turned upward, eyes glowing with moonlight or others. The stars were just lights, but to the deer they were voices soft and kind, speaking in a language of silence and shimmer. Some nights the stars told stories of distant mountains and old forests, of quiet dreams and gentle memories. Other nights we simply hummed a song made of light and stillness. Deer never spoke, but she understood. Not with words, but with her heart. A fox once came to her and asked, "What do the stars say?" But the deer only smiled, and the fox lay beside her trying to hear. What she heard: a breeze passed through the grass, cool and sweet, and the stars blinked slowly above. Deer closed her eyes, and in that moment she felt the whole world resting. Every tree, every stream, every sleeping creature held in the arms of the sky. A soft glow surrounded the clearing, not from the moon but from the stars themselves, as if they leaned closer just to be near the deer who listened. When the night grew deeper and the stars had sung all their songs, the deer turned and walked back into the forest, her steps light, her heart full, and the stars watched her go, glimmering gently, grateful for the one who truly listened. There was once a small village at the edge of a great meadow where flowers danced and trees whispered secrets, and every evening a soft wind would blow across the land. Villagers loved the wind. It cooled their faces. It carried the scent of pine and lavender. But there was one special thing about this wind: it could remember names. Not all names, only the names spoken to it with kindness, with stillness, with heart. A young boy named Sami lived in this village, and every night before bed he would stand on the little hill behind his house, close his eyes and softly say his name into the breezy. The wind would swirl around him, gently tugging at his hair, brushing his cheeks as if to say, "Yes, I remember you." "Oh night," Sammy whispered, "I had a hard day." And the wind answered, not with words but with a calm, steady hush that wrapped around him like a warm blanket. Stars above twinkled softly and the tall grass swayed like waves in the sea. Sammy sat down on the hill, the wind circling him in slow, smooth patterns as if rocking him to sleep. Each breath he took grew slower, each blink of his eyes longer, as the wind told stories of the trees it had passed, the mountains it had touched, and the distant oceans it had kissed. Adami listened, not with his ears but with something quieter, something deep. Earthwind whispered his name again, just once, just enough, and in that moment he felt safe. He felt known. As his eyes closed and the night grew still, the wind curled beside him, gentle and soft, carrying his dreams across the sky. And even long after he had fallen asleep, the wind stayed close, remembering his name again and again. High above the mountains where the sky is quiet and blue, a small round cloud floated all alone. It was soft and fluffy, like a ball of cotton drifting slowly in the wind. But this cloud had a dream. It did not want to rain or block the sun or travel the sky all day. It wanted to be a pillow. Each time it floated over a town, it would look down at the cozy beds, at the heads resting gently on soft cushions, and the cloud would sigh, thinking how lovely it must feel to help someone rest in evening. As the stars began to appear, the little cloud floated lower and lower until it reached the edge of a quiet forest. There it saw a girl lying on a blanket, staring up at the sky. She looked tired but peaceful, the kind of tired that comes after a long, happy day. The cloud hovered nearby, hoping she might see it, and she did. "What a soft cloud," she whispered. "I wish I could rest my head on you." And just like that, the cloud drifted down gently until it was just above her blanket. The girl reached up and the cloud carefully lowered itself under her head. It felt so light, so cool, so perfect. She smiled and closed her eyes. The stars above twinkled and the cloud stayed still, fluffing itself just right, not too high, not too low. In that quiet moment, the little cloud felt full of joy. This was what it had always wanted: to bring comfort, to bring rest. Wind moved softly through the trees and the forest hummed with nighttime sounds, owls calling, leaves rustling, stars singing their silent songs. Girl drifted into sleep, peaceful and calm, and the cloud held her head ever so gently. For the first time, it did not move with the breeze, it did not follow the sky, it simply stayed, being a pillow just as it had dreamed. Deep in the valley where the hills rolled gently like waves, there was a train that no one ever saw during the day. Its tracks were hidden beneath the grass. Its station was tucked behind trees, and its whistle only sounded when the stars came out. Called it the sleepy train because it ran only at night, and only for those ready to rest each evening as the sky turned soft with twilight. The train would begin to hum, a slow, soothing sound like a lullaby made of wheels and wind, and by one sleepy, travelers would arrive not with luggage but with dreams tucked in their pockets. They climbed aboard, finding seats that felt like beds with cushions so soft and warm. They seemed to breathe with you. No one ever rushed on the sleepy train. No one ever spoke loudly. Everything moved in whispers, from the gentle conductor to the night breeze slipping through the windows as the train began to roll. The lights inside dimmed and moonlight poured across the seats. Outside, fields passed by in silver shadows, rivers sparkled under the stars, and animals curled into sleep beneath trees. Train never went too fast, just enough to rock You gently side to side like a cradle. Soft music filled the air, something between a sigh and a song, and every turn of the wheels was like a heartbeat. Steady and common-side travelers leaned back, eyes closed, minds quiet. Some dreamed of faraway lands, some of warm kitchens and kind voices, some of clouds that carried them across the sky. Sleepy train knew all dreams and carried them safely through the soft hush of night. And when the journey was done, the train would slow, the doors would open, and the travelers would step into their dreams, walking softly into places only sleep could reach. And as dawn began to glow on the hills, the sleepy train would vanish once more, waiting for the stars to return. Far out in the deep blue sea, where the water stretches forever, a gentle whale swam slowly. Just beneath the surface, her skin shimmered in the moonlight, and her song echoed softly through the waves. This whale had a secret. Every night, when the world grew quiet and the sky filled with stars, she would sing to the moon. No one taught her how, no one told her why. She just knew deep in her heart that the moon listened. Her song was slow and low, a lullaby carried by the ocean, each note rising like a bubble floating through the sea until it reached the sky above. The moon would shine a little brighter when she sang, casting silver ribbons across the waves, and the stars would twinkle gently as if they too were listening. Fish would stop to hear, and dolphins would glide nearby, but no one made a sound. They all knew this was her moment, her quiet gift to the night. Whale would close her eyes as she sang, feeling the soft current rock her like a cradle, feeling the stillness of the deep and the closeness of the moon. Sometimes the moon felt far away, but her song always reached it because it came from a place deeper than water, deeper than sound, a place of icy night. A small sea turtle floated beside her and asked, "Why do you sing to the moon?" The whale smiled gently and replied, "Because it makes the world feel calm, because it helps me rest." Turtle curled beside her and listened as the song began again, slow and soothing, like the rhythm of waves against the shore. As the whale sang, the moon listened, the sea breathed, and the night became a little softer. In a quiet forest where golden light slipped through the trees, a little fox with soft red fur was getting ready for sleep. The air had grown cool and the leaves were starting to fall like gentle rain. Each leaf drifted slowly from the tall branches above, twisting and turning, floating down in the softest way. The fox watched them with sleepy eyes. Had spent her day walking through the woods, her tiny paws padding over moss and fallen twigs. She sniffed mushrooms, chased butterflies, and listened to the birds sing their fading songs. No, it was time to rest. She found a cozy spot beneath an old oak tree, where the roots curled like a soft blanket around her and the leaves above danced in the breeze, letting go one by one. The little fox curled into a ball, her fluffy tail wrapping around her like a scarf, and she breathed in the scent of the forest, earthy and calm. The wind whispered through the branches, a slow hush, 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 like the forest was singing a lullaby just for her. She watched one last leaf fall from high above. It spun like a feather, touched the tip of her nose, and landed softly beside Harrow's. Her eyes grew heavier. She listened to the gentle sounds of the woods, an owl calling in the distance, a creek bubbling nearby, and the rustle of leaves as they made their way to the ground. Little Fox sighed a long sleepy breath and let go of the day. With each falling leaf her dreams began to grow, dreams of running through fields, of chasing stars, of curling beside a warm fire. And the forest held her gently as the sky turned deep blue and the moon rose high. Leaves kept falling soft and slow like little wishes, covering the world in calm. And the sleepy fox, wrapped in her dreams, slept peacefully as the forest watched over her. In a little village by the sea, a child let go of a red balloon just as the sun was setting behind the hills. The string slipped from their fingers and the balloon rose slowly into the evening sky. It floated higher and higher, past rooftops and treetops, past birds gliding on the breeze, past clouds soft as pillows. But this balloon was no ordinary balloon. It was filled not just with air but with something gentle, a quiet wish, a whisper of calm. As the stars began to twinkle, the balloon drifted farther still through skies of deep blue and silver, carrying its peaceful wish. Wherever it went, it floated above cities, where lights blinked like fireflies, above forests, where animals settled into nests and burrows, above deserts, where the sand cooled under moonlight. It passed, the balloon left behind a hush, a stillness, as if the world paused for a moment to breathe. Some said they saw it from their window, glowing softly like a firefly. Others dreamed about it floating gently across their skies. Balloon did not rush, it had no hurry. It simply moved with the wind, calm and slow. At night it passed over a mountain lake, so still it mirrored the stars, and for a moment the balloon looked like it had a twin floating beneath. The waterrolls watched it pass, clouds opened around it, and somewhere far below a child whispered, "Good night, balloon, sleep well." And the balloon, quiet as ever, kept drifting up and up into the softest part of the sky, where dreams are born and wishes restored. There it floated forever. High in a tall tree, deep in the heart of a quiet forest, a little owl with big round eyes sat on a branch. The night was cool and still, the wind was soft like a sigh, and the sky above was filled with stars. Little Owl was not sleepy yet, so he decided to count the stars one by one. He looked up at the sky, his eyes wide in calmony. 2, 3, he whispered, his voice as light as the wind. For 5, 6, each star twinkled as he counted, like they were saying hello. Counted the stars above the trees, the ones hiding behind clouds and the ones low near the horizon. He counted until he lost track, and then he began again. Sometimes He stopped to listen to the frogs singing by the pond, to the rustle of leaves below, to the soft hoot of another owl in the distance, but always he came back to counting, because counting stars felt peaceful, like a lullaby in numbers. Like a quiet rhythm in the sky, the moon rose higher and the stars glowed brighter, but the forest stayed still, wrapped in night and calmed. Little Owl blinked slowly, his wings tucked close, his head tilted slightly as he looked at the sky. He imagined each star was a dream and that he could hold them all, gathering them gently in his feathers like tiny glowing wishes. His eyes began to close, not all at once but slowly, like the petals of a flower folding in the dark. Whispered, "One more number, maybe 100, maybe more." Then he sighed, a soft sleepy sound, and let himself drift into rest, cradled by the wind. Surrounded by star sand, the night watched over him, quiet and kind. In a little village where cobblestone paths curved between tiny houses, a quiet cat with silver fur stretched beneath the morning sun. But this cat was not like the others. She was curious about the world, and most of all she loved the wind. Wind was soft that morning, moving gently through leaves, making chimes sing softly. It brushed past the cat's whiskers and she stood up slowly, eyes half closed, tail swaying. She began to follow it step by step through gardens and fields. The wind danced ahead, not too fast, just enough to guide her. It carried the scent of lavender, the warmth of the sun, the whisper of clouds above. The cat moved silently, her paws light as air over grass and dirt, and little wooden bridges past sleepy sheep and trees, swaying like lullabies. She paused to watch petals fall or listen to birds in the branches, but always the wind called gently, and she followed up a small hill where the grass tickled her paws. She reached a wide view of the sky, and the wind slowed, soft and still, like a hushed cat sat there watching the clouds drift slowly, feeling the world move around her. But she did not move anymore. She was home for now, not in a place but in the moment. She curled up on the warm earth, her ears twitching gently with the breeze, her eyes closing little by little, and the wind, like a gentle friend, wrapped around her like a blanket. She drifted into sleep. The wind hummed softly, a tune just for her, and the world for a while was still. There was a hidden garden beyond the hills, a quiet place where time moved slowly and the air was always soft like early morning. This was not just any garden, it was a garden where dreams grew. In this garden flowers opened only at night, each petal glowing faintly with gentle colors, blues and purples, soft pinks and silver. A girl named Leela walked there barefoot on the mossy paths, her steps quiet and calm. She came each night when the sky turned dark to watch the garden bloom. She carried no tools, no basket, only a calm heart and a curious mind, because in this garden dreams did not need planting. They simply arrived when the world was quietly past beds of glowing tulips, each one swaying slightly in the breeze. She passed a tree whose leaves shimmered as if made of moonlight, in a pond where the stars above reflected perfectly, as if the sky had come down to rest. Sat by the pond, closed her eyes, and listened. The garden spoke in rustles and gentle creaks of branches, and the song of a distant bird, and in the stillness between sounds sometimes new dreams would rise from the earth like mist floating just above the soil. Shapes made of light and calm, they would swirl around Leela and she would smile, not needing to or them, only to feel them. Wind moved softly, carrying scents of jasmine and cool stone. The night was deep and kind, and Leela felt her breath slow, her thoughts drift like petals lay down in the grass, looking up at the sky, stars blinking above as if watching the garden tuned around her. The dream flowers swayed, glowing gently as if humming a lullaby meant only for sleep. Garden grew quieter still, and Lila's eyes closed, a slow peaceful close like the folding of a flower at dawn. And in the place where dreams grow, the night held her gently, and the garden kept blooming. High above the mountains where birds fly low and the sky feels close, there was a bridge made of clouds, soft and glowing. It stretched from one peak to another, like a path drawn by the wind. No, I knew who built it, but some said it appeared only for those who walked with wonder. One evening, a boy named Sammy stood at the edge of a cliff and saw the bridge appear through the mist. Took one slow step onto it, his feet sinking gently into the cool softness like walking on feathers. The bridge held him, welcoming each step, quiet, calm, steady. As Sammy walked, the clouds shifted under him, changing shape with the wind. Sometimes the bridge curled slightly like a ribbon in the sky, other times it was wide and smooth, glowing with a silver light bellow. The world looked peaceful, valleys with sleepy villages, rivers that shimmered in the moonlight, and faraway fields that swayed like they were dreaming above stars, floated close like they were walking with him, silent companions in the sky. Sammy felt no fear, only stillness. His breath matched the rhythm of the clouds, slow and soft. Each step was like a whisper, each moment a little dream. Passed through arches made of mist, drifted past tiny floating lanterns that flickered like fireflies, and heard distant chimes like the wind was singing a lullaby just for him. The bridge seemed to go on forever, but he didn't wonder where it ended, because it wasn't the end that mattered, only the walking, only the drifting, only the sky. And after a while, Sammy stopped in the middle of the bridge, lay down gently and looked up. Stars above blinked slowly as if growing sleepy too, and the clouds beneath him cradled his body, cool and calm. And there between earth and sky, Sammy let himself float into dreams. In a quiet forest where the trees whispered secrets, there lived a small bird with feathers like twilight. She was not like other birds who sang in the morning. This bird sang only at night. The name was Mira, and each evening when the sun dipped low, She perched on the highest branch of the tallest tree and waited for the stars to come out. When the first star blinked in the sky, Mira opened her beak and let out the softest song, a melody made of moonlight, of wind, and dreams of everything calm and still. Forest listened, animals paused, leaves hushed, and even the breeze seemed to move slower. Her song drifted far over hills and rivers, past sleepy cottages, through windows where children lay in bed, eyes growing heavy, hearts growing quiet. Said her song carried dreams that had wrapped around those who heard it like a blanket of stars, bringing peaceful thoughts and gentle rest. Mira never looked for applause, never needed company. She only sang because the night asked her to, because the stillness called, and she answered with music. Sometimes the moonlight touched her feathers, making her glow faintly like a star that had come to visit the trees, and when the wind blew just right, it carried her song even farther, to oceans, to deserts, to mountaintops touched by snow. And when her song ended, Mira tucked her head beneath her wing and closed her eyes, her chest rising and falling with soft, sleepy breaths, and the forest sighed, thankful for the lullaby. The stars above twinkled, the trees swayed gently, and the night grew deeper, wrapped in quiet music. Mira rested, the forest slept, and the world, just for a moment, was still. In a valley where the grass was soft and the sky was wide, there stood a tree taller than any other. Its branches stretched so high they seemed to touch the stars. People in the nearby village called it the sky tree, and they said it had been growing for hundreds of years, quietly, peacefully, reaching up day by day until its leaves brushed against the night sky. An evening, a boy named Rafi walked to the base of the tree. He had heard stories of its calm power, how sitting beneath it could bring dreams that floated like clouds. Rafi sat down, his back resting against the warm trunk, and looked up through the leaves. They shimmered with soft silver light, gently swaying with the night breeze. He closed his eyes and listened, not for words, but for the quiet, the stillness that the tree shared. A soft hum moved through the branches, like the wind had a voice, like the stars were singing far above her. Rafi felt it in his chest, like the rhythm of his own breath, slow and deep, peaceful and clear. As he breathed, he imagined the tree growing one slow ring at a time, year after year, with patience, with purpose, never rushing, just rising. Rafi leaned further back, feeling his body grow heavy, but his thoughts drifted up higher and higher through the branches toward the stars. In his mind, he climbed hand over hand, foot by foot, until he reached the very top, where the sky was open and the stars looked close enough to hold. Reached out, and in the dream, he touched one, a warm, quiet light that held no weight, only calm. Rafi smiled in his sleep, still sitting under the tree, his breathing deep and even, his heart still and calmed. Tree above him swayed gently, watching over him like an old friend, its branches glowing softly, its leaves whispering lullabies, and the stars far above twinkled gently, as if nodding in agreement that here, beneath the tallest tree, a dream had found its way. In a quiet village where the streets were lined with old stones and ivy climbed the walls, there was a small shop tucked between two buildings. It sold only one thing, lanterns that glowed without flame, but there was one lantern set on the highest shelf that no one ever bought. It was simple, made of old glass and gentle curves, but it was said to whisper when lit and rainy. Evening, a girl named Lena stepped into the shop. She was looking for something special, something soft and light to keep her company during storms. That shopkeeper was kind and pointed her toward the small lantern. This one glows just enough to make shadows dance, he said, and when you listen closely it tells stories. In the Quietville, took it home and placed it by her window outside. The rain tapped gently on the glass, and the sky was deep with night. Lit the lantern, and the room filled with a golden glow, not too bright, just warm and soft like a dream. She leaned closer, curious, and then she heard Ita faint whisper like wind through leaves, like the rustle of pages turning themselves. It spoke of forests filled with light, of oceans that sang, of clouds that carried dreams. Lina closed her eyes and listened. The words were not loud, not even clear, but they wrapped around her like a soft blanket, each one drifting through the air like mist. The breathing slowed, her thoughts softened, and she felt the whisper move through her, gentle as sleep outside. The rain slowed, the night deepened, and the little lantern glowed steady and calm. It whispered, still, low and kind, and Lena let herself drift, wrapped in light, held by the hush of a story only she could heart. Lantern stayed by her window night after night, a quiet friend, a gentle voice in the silence guiding her into sleep. Far across the sea, beyond the last wave and under the soft blue sky, there was an island so quiet and still that even the wind spoke in whispers. This island was not on any map, and yet many had visited it. In their sleep they called it the island where dreams floated, because in the cool air above the ground you could see soft glowing shapes drifting like clouds. Some were shaped like boats, some like birds, and some like nothing you had ever seen. They moved slowly, calmly, without sound, and when they passed by they left a feeling of peace behind. A boy named Elian arrived on the island one night while he slept. He did not know how he got there, only that the waves had brought him and the sky had welcomed him. Stepped onto the soft sand, cool and smooth beneath his bare feet, and looked around. Trees swayed gently, leaves shining with a light that seemed to come from within. Flowers opened even in the dark, as if they knew the stars were watching. Leon walked quietly, and above him the dreams floated. Some passed close enough for him to see. One looked like a golden kite dancing through the air, another shimmered like a silver fish swimming in the sky. One dream paused beside him, hovering in the stillness, and he heard A gentle song, no words, just sound like a memory he never knew he had. He followed a path of soft moss. It led him to a small pool of water so clear he could see the stars in it, and in the center, a single glowing stone rested just below the surface. Its light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat, like breathily, and sat beside the pool watching the dreams drift above his own thoughts. Quieted, his worries faded, and he felt lighter, as if he too might rise into the sky and join. A breeze moved across the island, not cold, just soft, carrying the scent of sea and night. It passed over Eliane, and he closed his eyes, breathing deeply, listened to the stillness, felt the earth beneath him, the sky above, and the dreams all around, and slowly his body relaxed. His thoughts slowed, and he drifted into deeper sleep, still on the island, still surrounded by floating dreams. The island remained, waiting for the next traveler, soft, peaceful, full of light and gentle air, where dreams floated and all who came found rest. In a forest where the trees grew tall and the moonlight touched the ground like silver water, an old owl lived in the hollow of a wide oak. He was quiet and kind, with feathers soft as dusk and eyes that glowed like the edge of dawn. His name was Oro, and each night when the sky turned dark and the world grew still, he flew to the highest branch he could find. There he sat silent and calm, counting the stars to 3 each shimmer. Above him was like a note in a song. He did not rush, he did not speak, just looked and counted and listened. On one evening when the breeze was gentle and the clouds had all gone to sleep, a little mouse named Mina scurried to the base of Oro's tree. She looked up and called softly, "Owl, why do you count the stars?" Oro turned his head and blinked slowly. "Because they are always there, even when we cannot see them," he said, "and counting them reminds me to slow down and breath." Amina sat on a soft patch of moss and looked up at the sky with him. "Can I count with you?" she asked. Oro nodded, and together they counted for 5, 6, their voices quiet, their hearts calmest. They counted. The stars seemed to twinkle a little brighter, as if they knew they were being noticed, as if they too wanted to be part of the moment. Night stretched wide around them, a blanket of peace and wonder. The sounds of the forest were soft and far away, just the rustle of leaves, the gentle creak of branches, and the quiet breath of 2 small friends looking up. 7, 8. Mina yawned, her eyes growing heavy, but she kept counting, her voice slowing, blending with the breeze. And when she could no longer keep her eyes open, she curled into a tiny ball on the moss. Oro watched over her, his feathers still, his eyes soft. Continued to count 10, 11, 12, until the sky seemed full, until the night was deep, until the forest was completely at rest. And in the morning, when the stars had faded and the sky turned soft and blue, Oro closed his eyes and drifted into sleep, knowing the stars would return and he would be there waiting, counting, breathing. Far above the clouds, where the sky was painted in soft shades of blue and lavender, there drifted a small, floating bookshop. It was made of warm wood and round windows held gently in the air by big white balloons and slow turning sails. Inside the bookshop everything was quiet and peaceful. Books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling, each one glowing faintly as if they carried a bit of starlight. Inside, the shopkeeper was a quiet cat named Elliot. He wore a little blue vest and soft glasses that always slid down his nose. Each evening he lit a small lantern and opened the door to the sky, waiting for dreamers to arrive. One night, a girl named Nora found herself stepping through the cloud mist and onto the wooden deck. She had never seen a floating shop before, but she felt calm the moment she entered. "Welcome," said Elliot, with a gentle purr, his voice as smooth as the night air. "Every book here holds a dream, just waiting to be read." Nora wandered slowly past the shelves, her fingertips brushing the spines. Some were warm, some were cool, all were silent and waiting. She chose a small book bound in soft green cloth. When she opened it, the pages began to shimmer and a story rose up like smoke from a candle, not with words but with pictures, gentle moving shapes that danced above the page. She sat by a round window, the book in her lap, and watched as a story unfolded. A quiet forest, a glowing fox, a calm river flowing under moonlight. The eyes grew soft, her breath deepened, and the story moved gently, not quickly, just enough to lull her mind into stillness. Outside, the window clouds drifted slowly by, stars twinkled in the sky, and the soft creak of the wooden shop sounded like an old lullaby. Elliot poured a tiny cup of warm milk and placed it beside her. He said nothing, only smiled, his eyes half closed with contentment. Tara's book slowly closed itself as she leaned back, the story complete. The dream softly folded into her thought. She rested there in the chair, her head tilted, her breath, even the floating bookshop, holding her like a cradle above the world. And somewhere deep in sleep, she dreamed of soft green pages and skies that carried stories. On a quiet beach where the waves whispered to the shore and the breeze felt like a lullaby, there stood a small sandcastle, tall and smooth, with towers shaped by careful hands. It had been made one early morning by a boy named Yolon, who loved the sea and the sound of the tide. He built the castle with patience, using seashells for windows and driftwood for doors. He worked all day, smiling as each wave crept close but never touched the base. People walked by and smiled at the castle, but as the sun dipped low, they expected the sea to wash it away, as it always did with sandcastles. But this one stayed. Night came, and still the castle stood, moonlight resting on its walls, and a soft glow seemed to come from within. Julian sat nearby, wrapped in a towel, his toes tucked into the cool sand. He whispered to the castle, thanking it for standing so proud as the stars blinked above. A gentle voice rose from the waves. It was not loud, just soft like foam against the shore. The voice said, "This castle is made not just of sand, but of dreams." And Kindernestul listened. His eyes wide with wonder, he lay down on the soft sand, and the waves curled near but did not take the castle. As he rested, he dreamed of small sea creatures gathering around the castle at night, polishing its walls, tucking pearls into its corners, making it even stronger with their quiet corin. His dream, the castle grew, a tiny light at the top tower, a beacon for dreamers who wandered the shoreline in their sleep. Breeze moved gently over Yallen, cool and calming, and the sound of the waves lulled him deeper into rest. Morning came, and the sun rose slowly, and still the castle stood untouched. Perfect people gathered again, whispering, wondering, but no one tried to move it. No one touched it. They just watched. Jedulan opened his eyes and smiled. He knew now that some things built with love, especially in quiet moments, could last longer than anyone expected. Stood and brushed the sand from his arms, but left the castle as it was, a gift to the beach, a promise kept by the sea. In a quiet part of the world where the hills were soft and always covered in light fog, a little train ran. Every evening just before dusk, its tracks curved gently through green valleys and silent forests, and the train itself was always on time. Never fast, never loud, just a steady hum like a lullaby. The train had only one car, painted deep blue with soft golden trim. Inside, the seats were covered in velvet, and each window had a little curtain that fluttered when the wind passed through. Evening, as the sky turned dusky purple, the train would stop at a tiny platform with no name, only a wooden bench and a lantern that glowed even when no one lit. One such evening, a boy named Theo stepped aboard the train he had heard about it in stories, a train that did not ask for tickets, only quiet hearts and sleepy minds. Edge took a seat by the window, and soon the train began to move, its wheels gently clicking on the rails, not sharp but soft like a heartbeat. Side mist rolled across the hills, blanketing the trees in silver, and every now and then a deer would appear, standing still and calm as the train passed. Theo leaned his head on the glass, his breath making small clouds on the window. Inside the train, a low melody played from somewhere unseen, not a song, just tones like wind through hollow stone. As the train moved deeper into the valley, the mist grew thicker, but Theo was never afraid. He felt wrapped in peace, as if the fog itself was holding him. Through window, he saw lanterns hanging from trees, tiny houses with warm lights in their windows, and birds that flew slowly in the air as if dreaming. Train slowed, and Theo felt his eyelids grow heavy. The warmth of the velvet seat, the rhythm of the wheels, the quiet of the valley, it all made sleep feel near her. Closed his eyes, and in his mind he still heard the soft hum of the train. He imagined it carrying him through dreams, past rivers made of stars and skies that whispered his name somewhere. Far behind, the platform lantern still glowed, waiting, always waiting for the next sleepy traveler. Far across the ocean, on a quiet island of soft sand and swaying trees, a small turtle named Nalu lived beneath a palm grove. He loved the sea, and he loved the moon even more. Each night he would climb to the top of a dune just to watch the moon rise over the waves. Nalu believed the moon was talking to him, not with words but with silver light that danced on the water. Sometimes the moon seemed close, as if waiting for him, and sometimes far, like a soft dream floating high above. One evening, as the stars blinked into the sky, Nalu felt something different, a gentle tug in his heart, as if the moon had whispered, "Come here." Began to walk slow and steady as turtles do. His small feet pressed the sand, leaving tiny prints behind. Waves welcomed him, cool and calm. He swam beneath the surface where the world was quiet, where every sound was soft like music. Above him, the moonlight shimmered through the water, guiding him. Not too fast, not too bright, just in Unaloo, past coral castles and fields of seagrass that waved like sleepy hands. He saw glowing fish that drifted like lanterns, and jellyfish that pulsed gently, floating through the deep like daydreams. As he swam, he did not feel tired. He felt held, like the ocean was cradling him in both arms. Eventually, he reached a hidden cove where the water turned still and the moonlight poured in wide and full. There, on a smooth rock in the middle of the cove, Nalu rested, looked up. The moon now hung directly above him, large, gentle. Quiet blinked slowly, and the moon blinked back in its own way with a shimmer across the waves. Nalu felt peace like he had never known, not from swimming far, not from the quiet, but from the stillness inside him. He closed his eyes, and for a while the sea was silent, the moon steady, and the stars like soft sparks of thought. And though he would return to his island, he would carry this moment in his heart, a memory of following the moon and finding the calm waiting at the end of the journey. Deep in the hills, beyond the edge of every map, there was a forest that few had seen, a quiet place where the trees whispered in voices softer than wind, and the leaves never fell. They only changed color with the dreams of those who passed by. A tree held a memory. Each flower opened when someone slept nearby, and in the center of it all, a small clearing held a bed of moss where the forest listened more closely than anywhere else. One evening, a traveler named Elia wandered into the forest. Tired from many days of walking, her eyes heavy, her thoughts gentle and slow, she followed a path that curved like a ribbon through the trees, each step muffled by the soft earth beneath. Her feet above her branches touched like quiet hands woven together to hold the sky. Elia felt something unusual, as if the forest already knew her, as if it had been waiting for her to arrive. She did not speak, she only breathed, slow, deep, and full of wondering. The clearing she found, the moss bed lit by small glowing insects that drifted like floating stars. Without a word, she lay down and closed her eyes, and the forest began to hum. It was not music, not words, just a sound like memory, soft and old, wrapped in kindness. Trees began to shimmer, and their leaves turned from green to gold, then from gold to silver, shifting with the rhythm of Ilia's dreams. As she drifted into sleep, the forest leaned closer gently, holding her dreams in its branches, swaying, listening, remembering. In her dreams she saw floating lanterns above a calm river, a boat made of moonlight, and fields of flowers that bloomed only in the dark, each image passing like a cloud, soft, unhurried, peaceful. Forest watched with care, never taking, only holding, like a friend who listens without asking why. When the night grew quiet, and the stars stretched long across the sky, Ilia turned slightly in her sleep, and the forest sighed a slow, content breath, like it too was dreaming. And though Ilia would wake and leave one day, the trees would remember every color, every feeling, every soft thought she gave to the night. Forest would keep her dreams safe, still glowing. In a quiet town where rooftops touched the stars, there was an old house with a secret. Its wooden stairs creaked. Its windows were tall and round, but it was the attic that held the wonder. No one had opened the attic door in years, until one soft evening when a boy named Theo climbed up with a lantern in hand. He was curious, not afraid. Drawn by a feeling he could not name, dust floated in the light as he stepped inside. Boxes stacked like small towers, a rocking chair waited in one corner, and a soft rug stretched across the wooden floor. But what Theo noticed most was the ceiling. It wasn't just wood, it was sky, not painted sky, not a mirror, but a living sky full of slow moving clouds, stars that blinked, and a moon that glowed with a soft silver light. Sat down, gazing up, feeling the hush of the attic wrap around him. It was not cold, not lonely, it felt like being held by the night itself. A gentle breeze moved through the room, though there were no open windows, and with it came the scent of something sweet, like rain on warm stone. Aces. Theo breathed slowly. The stars above him began to shift, not fast but with purpose, forming gentle shapes. A ship made of starlight, a whale floating through a sea of clouds, a garden where flowers bloomed only in the dark. Each image passed quietly like a dream. Just before waking, and Theo watched them all, his mind still, his heart full. Did not speak, he only listened to the sound of the sky moving, the quiet rhythm of the attic's breath. And the calm inside himself. Lay back on the rug, closed his eyes, and let the ceiling sky hold him like a lullaby, drifting gently with no weight, no worry. Attic kept its secret, but now Theo was part of it, a quiet memory tucked beneath a sky that never ended. A boy and a room full of wonder, and long after he left, the stars would still move, the breeze would still blow, and the attic would remember. There was a train station with no name, hidden at the edge of a sleepy meadow. You could only find it when the moon was full and the air smelled like lavender and old popora. A girl named Mira found it one night while chasing a firefly through the tall grass. The train was already waiting, shining silver, quiet as a whisper, with soft blue lights glowing inside the window. Stepped aboard, and the door closed gently behind her. There were no conductors, no tickets, just rows of velvet seats, and a gentle hum beneath the floor. The train began to move, slow at first, gliding across the field, then lifting off the ground, floating higher and higher until the clouds passed beneath them and the stars opened wide like a silent sky full of dreams. Pressed her face to the window, watching the earth drift far below, and ahead of her a glowing city floated among the stars. This was the moon market, a place that only appeared in dreams, where night creatures sold glowing fruit and soft music floated through the air like mist. The train arrived. Myra stepped out onto a silver platform. Stars twinkled all around, and moonlight dust sparkled at her feet. Wandered the market past stalls of glowing feathers, bottled wishes, and blankets woven from starlight. A soft voice called her to one table where a gentle fox in a cloak offered her a small crystal. "This remembers dreams," he said. "Just place it under your pillow and the best ones will come." Again Mira smiled, took the crystal, and thanked him with a nod. The train's bell rang softly in the distance, a signal it was time to return. She walked back slowly, not rushing, letting the moment linger like a warm breath back in her seat. She watched the market fade behind her, soft and golden, until it became just another star. The train floated down through the clouds across the meadow and gently stopped where it began. Mira stepped onto the grass, the firefly still waiting nearby, and as she walked home, the sky above seemed closer, quieter, like it had shared a secret just with her that night. She slipped the crystal under her pillow, closed her eyes, and waited for the dream to return. High above the world, where the wind sings soft songs, there was a little cloud named Puffy. Puffy was small and round, gentle as a feather, but he had one little problem: forgot how to float. All the other clouds drifted together, dancing through the sky, painting shapes and hiding the sun just for fun, but Puffy would always sink to low, resting on treetops, sitting on rooftops, sometimes even bouncing off hills. Older clouds told him just breathe slow and let go. But Puffy tried, and still he would fail. An evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned pink, Puffy landed softly in a field of tall grass. He let out a little sigh, a cloud sigh, gentle and sweet like steam from tea. Then he heard a voice, a soft voice, a sleepy voice, beneath a quiet lake where lily pads float and dragonflies hum their sleepy tunes. There was a secret garden hidden far below. The surface where sunlight shimmered like soft gold through the water. No one on land knew it was there. No fish swam too deep, no boats passed above it. It simply waited, silent, still, and dreaming. But one summer evening, a girl named Lena sat by the edge of the lake, her toes just touching the water. She had a heavy heart full of thoughts that rustled like dry leaves. She leaned closer to the rippling surface. She saw something below, not a fish, not a stone, but a light, a soft blue glow that called to her. Gently, without fear, Lena slipped into the lake. The water was cool and kind, holding her like a lullaby. She floated down slowly past reeds, past tiny bubbles, until she reached the glowing arch of an underwater Gatesh, passed through it. And there it was, the secret garden under the lake. Tall seagrasses swayed like trees. Flowers bloomed with petals made of pearl, and glowing jellyfish drifted slowly above like floating lanterns. Lena walked along a path of smooth shells, her steps light, her breath steady. She felt her worries float away, carried off by the soft current, leaving her light and calm. The center of the garden stood a quiet tree made of coral. Its branches danced without sound, and beneath it was a small bench just the size for her. She sat there watching the garden move, not with noise but with rhythm, a kind of gentle music you feel instead of hard. Time slowed her thoughts, softened her heart, felt still again, just like the water. After a while, a breeze began to stir, even underwater. It moved like a whisper, and Lena knew it was time to return. She rose slowly like a bubble, rising home, back through the arch, up through the calm lake until she reached the surface. Stars were out now, and the lake reflected every one as if the sky had fallen into the water just for her. Lena smiled, her heart no longer heavy, and though she never spoke of it, she always remembered the garden that waited quietly under the lake. Far away in a land of soft winds and silver clouds, there was a mountain taller than any other. Its peak touched the stars, and its slopes were covered in soft moss and old trees. The villagers below called it Dream Whisper. They said, if you climbed the mountain with a quiet heart, you could hear it whisper your truest dream, not the loud dreams of fame or gold, but the quiet ones. The ones you only hear in stillness. A boy named Ren wanted to hear the whisper, not because he was curious, but because he had lost his dream. He could not remember what it was. He only knew that something was missing. Goni morning, just before dawn, Ren began the climb. He wore a scarf his grandmother made and carried a small lantern. Though the mountain path was soft and gentle, it still felt like a journey. His thoughts became quieter with every step, as if the mountain was already working its magish past streams that giggled like children, trees that swayed like dancers, and small birds that hummed lullabies from branches above. Soon the world below disappeared into a soft mist, and the stars above seemed closer than ever. At the very top there was no sound, only silence, and the soft beating of his own heart. Ren sat down on a warm rock, closed his eyes, and waited. The wind circled gently, touching his cheek, brushing his scarf. Then he heard it, not with his ears but with his heart, a whisper soft as sleep, a memory of when he was small, watching the stars with his father, dreaming of painting skies with colors no one had ever seen. His dream was never lost, just quiet, waiting to be heard again. Ren smiled and opened his eyes. The sky was now soft blue, the sun beginning to rise, and the world below, waking up, stood still and peaceful, and began the walk back down. His dream warm in his chest like a lantern glowing from within. In a quiet forest where the trees stood tall and the wind whispered gently through the leaves, there lived a little owl named Orin. Orin was not like the other owls. While they hunted and played through the night, Orin liked to sit on the tallest branch and count the stars. Each night he would blink his big eyes, turn his head to the sky, and whisper numbers as he counted 1, 2, 3 until he lost track and started. Agana did not count to win a prize or prove anything. He counted because it made him feel calm. It made him feel like the night was his friend, a soft companion who always returned at evening after the sun slipped away and the moon rose high. Orin flew to his favorite branch, but clouds had covered the sky, no stars. Tona waited and waited until he heard a soft voice beside him. It was a squirrel named Lulu. "Why are you up here?" she asked. "The stars are gone." Torin said, "I know, but I still feel them. They are there even when we cannot see them, like dreams waiting behind closed eyes." Lulu tilted her head. "That is lovely," she said. "May I wait with Yuthi?" Sat in silence. Soft wind, gentle moonlight, no stars, just peace. Soon a tiny gap appeared in the clouds, and one star peeked through, then 2, then 10, then hundreds. A soft shimmer like glitter on a blanket. Torin smiled. 1, 2, 3, he began again. Lulu joined him, their voices like quiet music blending with the breeze. They did not count to finish, they counted to feel, to dream, to drift. And as the stars watched from above, Orin and Lulu stayed on the branch, blinking slowly, hearts full, minds still, counting stars until sleep gently arrived. In a quiet town tucked between soft hills and silent rivers, there was an old train station that never made a sound. No people came and no announcements were made, but at midnight each night a silver train would glide along the tracks without a single noise. This was no ordinary train. It did not run on coal or steam or electricity. It ran on dreams. Every night, while the town slept, the dream train would arrive, soft wheels humming gently as it pulled into the station. No passengers waited, but the dreams of every sleeping person climbed aboard's train would carry them through places no map could show. Mountains made of stardust, oceans that glowed with golden fish, forests where the leaves whispered lullabies. So in evening, a little girl named Mia stayed up late. She had heard stories about the midnight train, How it only came when eyes were closed and breaths were slow. She wanted to see it with her own eyes. Curled up on the windowsill of her room, wrapped in a blanket and holding her stuffed fox, the stars twinkled above and the town was quiet as the clock struck 12. She heard a soft sound like humming and wind mixed together through the trees. She saw it, a silver blur gliding without a single puff or clatter. Its windows glowed softly, its lights warm and golden. Mia blinked slowly and her head grew heavy. Though her eyes were open, she began to dream. The train was calling her, not with words but with a feeling, a deep, peaceful pull, like floating in her dream. She stepped onto the train, soft velvet seats, gentle music playing somewhere far off. She sat by the window and watched stars float past trees, waved clouds, danced, and her heart felt lighter than ever before. Train did not need a track in the dream. It followed feelings and thoughts, turning with wonder, slowing for joy, and pausing at peace. Be morning, the train returned. And so did the dreams, quietly slipping back into minds and hearts, leaving behind a glow of calm and magic. Mia awoke with the sun smiling softly, her stuffed fox still in her arms, and the sound of gentle humming fading into the breeze. In a valley where the grass was always green and the sky seemed endless, there lived a soft wind that never rushed. It did not howl or roar like the winds in faraway lands. This wind liked to sing. Each morning it would wake with the rising sun, gently brushing through the fields, humming soft tunes only the trees could understand. It. Trees in the valley were tall and wise. Their leaves would dance slowly whenever the wind passed by, and in return they would whisper back with rustling branches a conversation. Quiet and kindling tree stood in the very center of the valley. Its name was Elder. It had lived through many seasons, seen many changes, and it loved the wind most of all. Wind would wrap around Elder's trunk, tickle its leaves, and sing stories from far beyond the hills. Elder listened with quiet joy, but one day clouds gathered low and thick, and the wind did not come. The valley waited. The trees were still, and Elder missed the voice of its oldest friend for 3 nights. The valley stayed quiet, only the sound of soft rain and distant thunder. Elder closed its branches, trying to remember the last song the wind had sung. In the 4th night, just as the moon peeked through the clouds, a gentle sigh swept across the grass. The wind had returned. Its song was softer now, slow and dreamy, but full of warmth. He went far away. It whispered to Elder to learn a new song from the sea. Elder rustled, gently welcoming the wind back with open branches to go. They filled the valley with a melody so calm, so peaceful, that every flower leaned into the sound, and even the stars above twinkled in time. The wind sang all through the night, and the trees, they danced slow and dreamlike until the sun rose again. And from that day on, whenever the wind sang, the valley would listen and the trees would remember. Deep in a quiet forest where the trees grew tall and still, there lived an owl named Olive. Olive was not like the other owls. She did not like to hunt or hoot or flap about in the dark. She liked to sit on the same branch every night and count the stars. Each evening, as the sun sank low and the sky turned deep blue, Olive would wake, gently stretch her soft wings, and perch high in her favorite pine tree where the sky was clear and wide. Above her she would blink her big round eyes and begin her counting: 1, 2, 3, a cluster near the moon; 4, 5, 6, a line that looked like a silver ribbon. Some nights clouds would cover the sky and Olive would close her eyes and imagine the stars still shining behind them. Other nights the stars were so many she would lose count and start again, never bothered, never rush it. Other animals wondered why Olive counted stars. A squirrel once asked her, "What do you find up there in the sky?" And Olive replied in her soft voice, "I find calm, I find quiet, I find dreams." In the evening a little fawn wandered into the forest. It was her first time away from her mother, and the night felt too big, the trees too tall, the shadows too deep. Looked up and saw Olive still and peaceful in her tree, and called up softly, "What are you doing up there counting stars?" Olive answered kindly, "Would you like to count with me?" Little fawn looked up at the sky. It was full of lights, some twinkling, some still, some dancing slowly. Together they counted. The fawn whispered the numbers with a sleepy voice, and Olive nodded slowly, adding each star like a bead on a gentle string. Soon the fawn felt less alone. The stars were like little friends, blinking down. The forest no longer felt so dark, the night no longer so cold. When the fawn lay down in the grass, her eyes grew heavy, and Olive kept counting, keeping watch. By the time the sun peeked over the trees, Olive had reached a number no one had ever heard of, but she smiled, for it was not about the number. It was about the peace that filled the night. And every night after, the fawn would visit, and together they counted stars. Far away beyond the hills and the meadows there flowed a river that shimmered like silver under the moon. It was not a fast river. It moved gently like a slow breath in the quiet of night. Animals in the forest called it the Dream River because they believed it could remember dreams. They would come to its banks, look into its still waters, and whisper their dreams before going to sleep. A young rabbit named Lino visited the river every evening. He would sit near a patch of soft moss, dip his paw in the cool water, and whisper his dreams into the ripples. He wished to run through fields that never end. He would say, "I dream of dancing with fireflies and floating like a leaf in the wind," and the river would listen, never speaking, only glowing slightly brighter as if it understood him. Night the stars were hidden behind soft clouds and the wind was still. Lino sat by the river, but he had no dream to share. His mind felt quiet like a page with no words, so he asked the river, "Do you remember my dreams even when I forget?" Thames River sparkled gently and a tiny wave reached out to touch Lino's paw, and in that moment images began to form on the water's surface. He saw himself as a tiny kid dreaming of flying through the sky. He saw the field of flowers he once imagined where butterflies carried music in the air. He saw nights filled with moonlight and wished the river had remembered it. Lino smiled softly, his heart warm, his eyes heavy, curled up beside the river, the sounds of the water like a lullaby, soft and flowing as he drifted off to sleep. The river continued its slow journey, carrying dreams down through the valley, where other animals would one day come and share their own. And even when the world was quiet, the river always remembered. In a land far beyond the clouds, there stood a mountain so tall its peak touched the stars. The people in the valley below called it the Quiet Giant, for it never rumbled or roared like other mountains. Instead it whispered soft lullabies. Every night villagers would open their windows before bed just to hear the mountain sing. Its voice was low and gentle, like wind passing through tall grass, like the hum of the earth in deep sleep. Children fell asleep to its sound, dreaming of clouds and snowy peaks, and even the animals curled in their nests and burrows felt the calm of the mountain's song. No one knew where the lullabies came from, but they felt old, as if the mountain had been singing for 1,000 years and would go on singing forever. On chilly night, a little girl named Emma could not sleep. She had never heard the mountain sing so softly. The sound was faint, like it was far away. So Emma put on her warmest coat and climbed the path toward the mountain. The wind was cool but kind, guiding her gently around each bend. As she climbed higher, the air grew thinner and the stars grew brighter, until finally she reached a ledge where the sky opened wide. There she heard the lullaby again, clear and close, like a hum from the heart of the mountain. Emma sat down on a smooth stone, closed her eyes, and listened. That lullaby was not made of words, it was made of feelings, of stillness, of warmth, of soft snow, and slow clouds of love that wrapped around her like a blanket. Emma began to hum along, and the mountain's voice rose just a little, as if happy to have someone to sing with. Sat there until her eyes felt heavy, then curled up under her coat and let the lullaby carry her into dreams. Be morning. The villagers heard the mountain's song stronger than ever. They smiled and slept longer, and Emma returned home with a heart full of calm. And every night after, she would listen closely, knowing she had once sung with a mountain that whispered lullabies to the world. In a quiet village at the edge of a deep forest, there lived a boy named Finn. He had a curious heart and quiet feet, and he loved to listen to the sounds the world made, not the loud sounds of carts or chatter, but the gentle sounds like the flutter of wings or the drip of morning dew from a leaf. One day Finn discovered something strange. He shouted hello into a cave, and the cave answered back, not right away but softly. Hello had found an echo, and he was amazed. That day on, Finn began to search for echoes. He wandered the hills and valleys, calling out into canyons, across lakes, into deep wells, and each time an echo would return, thought of them as gentle voices of the earth, and began to collect them in a small wooden notebook, not with pen or ink but with memory. He would sit quietly, close his eyes, and replay the echoes in his minden day. He climbed a high hill he had never visited before. At the top he whispered a word. Peace. He waited, but no echo. Kamek tried again, still nothing. Sat down, puzzled. Maybe the hill was too quiet, or maybe it was listening instead of speaking. So he closed his eyes and whispered again. This time he did not hear an echo, but he felt something, a warmth in his chest, a soft breeze across his cheek, like the hill had answered, not with sound but with stillness. Finn smiled. He realized that not all echoes return as voices. Some come back as calm, as quiet as the gentle reminder to be still and breathe. He added the silent echo to his notebook and made his way home, his steps slow and steady, the world around him full of whispers and wonder. At night he fell asleep to the memory of echoes, the soft reply of the earth and the quiet answer of peace. Deep in the heart of a quiet valley hidden behind soft hills and silver mist, there was a garden unlike any other, not because of its size or color but because of what it grew. This garden grew dreams. Each evening, as the sun dipped low, the garden would begin to shimmer. Tiny flowers would glow gently as if holding moonlight inside their petals, and the air would hum with a soft, peaceful song. People from nearby villages would visit, not to pick the flowers but to sit beside them, to breathe in their scent and to let their dreams grow. Some saw floating castles made of clouds. Others dreamt of flying over oceans or walking through golden forests where stars hung low. One night, a girl named Lena wandered into the valley. She had not planned to find the garden. She had simply followed a trail of fireflies through the trees until she reached the soft glowing edges, stepped quietly between the flowers, noticing each one swaying as she passed, as if they sensed her dreams waiting to bloom. Sat on a mossy stone, closed her eyes and listened. Thoughts came at first only calm, then slowly images began to form. She saw herself painting skies with her fingertips, riding a wind that carried colors like ribbons. Her heart felt light, as if it was floating to one. She opened her eyes. She smiled. The garden had given her a dream, not just one for sleep, but one to carry in her heart. Flowers glowed a little brighter around her, as if saying thank you, then slowly dimmed as the night depended. Lena returned home, but the dream stayed with her whenever she felt unsure or afraid. She closed her eyes and the garden came back to her, petals, glowing, air humming, and her dream growing strong and soft inside. Some say the garden is still They're waiting quietly for those who need a dream, and if you ever follow the fireflies, you just might find it to asterisk. In a small, quiet village where the houses leaned gently into one another, there was a lantern that hung on a curved wooden post near the well. It was not large or grand, just a simple lantern made of copper and glass, but it held a soft golden light that never went out. People called it the forever light, and they said it had been glowing since the village began. No one knew who had first lit it, but everyone agreed it gave more than just light. It gave comfort, like the feeling of warm hands on a cold evening, like a soft blanket or a familiar song. Every evening, as the sky turned blue and purple, children would gather near the lantern. They would sit quietly around it, sharing stories or just listening to the silence, and no matter the season, the lantern always glowed gently, never flickering, never flickering, never fading. One winter night, a young boy named Eli asked his grandmother, "Why does the lantern never go out?" His grandmother smiled. "Because it remembers," she said. "It remembers every wish whispered near it, every smile shared beneath it, every kind word spoken within its glow, and so it keeps burning for all of you." Sully thought about that for a long time. The next night he went to the lantern alone. He stood quietly, then closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you." The lantern flickered just once, not a weak flicker, but a happy one, as if it had heard him. Ellie smiled and walked home, and from that night on, he visited the lantern every evening, sometimes with a wish, sometimes with a story, sometimes with nothing but a gentle breath, and still the lantern glowed. Some say it glows even brighter now because of Eli and all the quiet thanks, because light grows with love, and love lives in quiet places. So if you ever find yourself walking through a soft, sleepy village and you see a golden light near a well, sit for a while, and maybe, just maybe, you will feel the glow. To asterisk high in the clouds, where the air is crisp and silent, tiny snowflakes are born from mist and cold, each one with its own shape and sparkle, each one with its own journey. One winter evening, as snow began to fall, a small snowflake named Nevi blinked open her eyes. She twirled with excitement, ready to glide down to earth, but a gust of wind spun her the wrong way, and before she could catch her balance, she was floating far from the other. Snivy drifted past hills and forests, past villages and rivers. She tried calling out, but the wind carried her voice away. She began to worry. What if she never found where she was supposed to land? What if she melted before finding her places? She floated alone. The stars above twinkled gently, and a moonbeam stretched down like a thread, guiding her slowly through the sky below. An old man was walking home through the snow. He looked up, his breath rising like smoke, and he whispered, "What a beautiful night." Just then Nevi floated gently onto the sleeve of his coat. She rested there, soft and bright. The man paused and smiled, noticing the tiny snowflake glowing like a star. Whispered again, "Thank you for finding Manavi." Felt warm, not from heat, but from the kindness in his voice. For a moment everything was still: the snow, the wind, the stars above. And Nivi slowly melted into a drop of water, but she was not afraid. She knew she had found her place, not lost, but chosen. And as the man walked on, the drop of water shimmered in the moonlight, part of something larger, part of a quiet winter story. So if you ever catch a snowflake on your sleeve, pause for a moment. You might be holding a little journey, a little miracle that drifted far just to meet you. Deep in the forest, where the trees grew tall and the air was cool, there lived a wise old owl named Luma. Her feathers were soft and silver like moonlight, and her eyes sparkled like the night sky. Every evening when the sun dipped low, Luma would fly to the tallest tree, settle on her favorite branch, and begin to count the stars. 1, 2, 3. Her voice was soft, each number carried gently through the breeze. No one knew why she counted, but animals would often gather beneath her, curious and calm. Little Fox once asked Luma, "Why do you count the stars?" Luma smiled, "Because each one tells a story, and every story helps the forest sleeps." Animals listened quietly, the rustle of leaves, the hush of the wind, and Luma, counting for 5, 6 stars, twinkled above each one, glowing gently as if nodding to her voice. Sometimes clouds would drift by, hiding the stars, but Luma kept counting even when she could not see them, because she trusted they were still there. On one very cloudy night, a young rabbit said, "There are no stars tonight. How will we dream?" Luma looked down and said, "Stars are not only in the sky, they are in our hearts and our memories, in every peaceful breath we take." She closed her eyes and began to hum a soft tune, low and steady like the hum of the earth itself. Forest grew still, the wind slowed, and the animals felt safe. Dreams began to bloom quietly in their minds, gentle dreams filled with light and calm. And up in the tree, Luma whispered, 7, 8, 9, counting not the stars above, but the ones glowing within. Tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine a silver owl perched in a tall tree, counting stars just for you, guiding your dreams with numbers and stillness until morning comes. High in the sky, above mountains and meadows, a young wind was born. His name was Breezel. He was fast and playful, always rushing through the trees, tossing leaves and waking sleeping flowers with a swirl. But Breezel was too loud. He whooshed and rushed wherever he went, startling birds, shaking branches, even tipping over hats. In the village below, other winds tried to help. They told him, "Slow down, be gentle," but Breezel didn't know how. He only knew how to run fast and spin on. Evening, as the sun set in golden silence, Breezel passed by a quiet lake, its surface still like glass. He paused, curious about the calm bellow, whispered, "Hello," but his voice made ripples and waves. The lake frowned gently and said, "You must learn to whisper soft Like the evening breeze that sings lullabies. Breezel tried again. He slowed, he softened, he curled low and hummed instead of shouting. This time the lake smiled, the ripples turned into tiny shimmers, and a sleeping duck floated peacefully past. Had never seen anything so calm. Began to practice each night, brushing petals without shaking them, lifting feathers without scattering them, singing through branches without breaking a leaf. The forest began to love him. Children giggled when Breezel tickled their cheeks, foxes napped in a soft breeze, even owls blinked slowly when he passed it. Had learned to whisper, and with it he found joy, not in rushing but in resting. So, tonight as you drift asleep, imagine a gentle wind curling past your window, singing a soft breeze just for youth. Wind that learned to whisper and never forgot. In a quiet valley far away where purple flowers bloom as far as the eyes can see, there lived a lion named Leo, but he was not like other lions. He did not roar or chase or run. He liked to nap and dream, and Rest Valley was his peaceful home, filled with soft grass, gentle winds, and endless fields of lavender that smelled sweet and calm. Every morning when the sun rose, Leo would yawn a big soft yawn, stretch his golden paws, and take a short stroll through the flowers. But by midday, he would always find the coziest patch of lavender, curl up and drift into a dreamy sleep. Butterflies would land gently on his mane, the bees would buzz nearby but never bother him, and the clouds would float slow above his head like they were dreaming tune day. A young rabbit came hopping through the valley. He saw the lion sleeping and said, "Aren't lions supposed to be fierce and strong?" Opened one eye, smiled, and said, "Sometimes strength is knowing when to be stilled." Rabbit sat beside him, listened to the wind, and soon he too was yawning, and animals from all over began to visit the sleepy lion. They came not for action or adventure, but for rest, because the valley was quiet and the lion was calm and it felt safe. When the stars began to rise, Leo would look at the sky, let out a soft purr, and whisper a sleepy thought to the moon. Would say, "Thank you for the quiet, thank you for the night," and then he would close his eyes and sleep once more. So tonight, as you lie still, imagine the lavender valley cool and calm, and a sleepy lion resting in its heart, and let your dreams bloom gently like the purple flowers, soft, slow, and full of peace. Far beneath the surface of a deep blue ocean there lived a whale named Luna. She was gentle and kind, with a voice that could hum through the waves like a lullaby. Luna had a dream. She wanted to sing to the stars every night. She would swim to the top of the sea, float still in the moonlight, and sing softly, hoping the stars could hear her. Song was filled with wonder, long slow notes that rolled through the water, echoing through the quiet night. Fish would pause to listen. The dolphins would dance in slow spirals. Even the jellyfish would glow a little brighter when Luna sang. But still Luna wondered, "Do the stars hear me?" One evening as she rose to the surface, the sky was so clear, each star shining like a tiny bell. She took a deep breath and began to sing. This time her song was slower, calmer, filled with love and longing. Above her, a small star began to twinkle brighter, then another and another, until the sky seemed to shimmer in rhythm with her voice. Luna smiled and kept singing, her heart full of peace. From that night on she sang every evening, and the stars always listened. Semets, they twinkled in patterns. Sometimes they seemed to move like waves in the sky, and Luna knew her song had reached themes. So tonight, as you lie beneath your own sky, imagine the quiet ocean and a whale floating gently near the surface, whose song like a lullaby, soft and slow, meant for the stars and maybe for you. In a quiet forest where the trees whispered secrets to the wind, there lived a little fox named Finn. Finn had soft red fur and sleepy golden eyes. He loved gentle things like morning mist and falling leaves, but most of all he loved the rain and rainy days. Finn would curl up beneath a mushroom cap or hide inside the hollow of an old tree and listen. Drip, drip, drip. The sound made him feel calm and safe, like the forest was singing just for him own day. He thought, "I wonder how many raindrops fall in a day." So he began to count 1, 2, 3, drip, 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 counted until his eyes grew heavy, until the forest around him blurred like a watercolor painting, until he forgot numbers and only felt the rhythm. Rain tapped on leaves, splashed into puddles, rolled off branches like soft silver pearls, and Finn just listened, not to count anymore, but to be still and quiet. And cozy animals passed by and smiled at the little fox. The squirrels hurried by with their tails curled tight. The birds fluffed their feathers and sang quiet songs, but Finn stayed tucked in his nook, his ears twitching gently with each drop. When the rain stopped, the forest sparkled, every leaf shining, every branch dripping with light. And opened one eye, then the other, and Yoned did not know how many drops had fallen, but he felt like he had caught them all in his dream. So tonight, if you hear rain on your window, think of the little fox in the forest, counting softly and drifting gently into sleep, and let each drop carry you closer to your dreams. Once in a quiet village, where the wind spoke in soft whispers, there lived a girl named Lena. She loved flowers more than anything, roses and daisies, lavender and lilies. She would spend her days sketching petals in the corners of her notebook and dreaming of colors blooming in the snow. But her village was cold, always cold. Snow blanketed the hills and rooftops. All year round, no gardens ever grew, only white silence stretching far and wide. Still, Lena believed that one day a single flower might peek through the snow and smile at the sky. So one morning when the sun was low and pale, she walked into the snow with a tiny wooden box. Inside were seeds, each one small and silent. Tucked in with courage, she found a little clearing, soft and quiet, and dug gently into the snow, placing the seeds one by one. Her fingers were cold, but her heart was warm. The very day she visited her snowy patch, she whispered stories to the ground about sunlight and spring, about bees humming and butterflies dancing, about how beautiful the flowers would be when the Aravedis passed. Then weeks. The snow stayed, the seeds slept beneath the earth, but Lena never stopped visiting, never stopped hoping. Then one evening, as the stars stretched across the sky, Lena saw something, just a glimmer, a flicker of green, tiny and shy, a leaf bee morning. There were more, a sprout then another, and soon a tiny blue flower opened its eyes. The villagers came to see one by one, their quiet footsteps crunching on the snow, and when they saw Lena's garden, they smiled. In the middle of the cold, life had found a way, petals, shining colors glowing softly under the winter sun. From then on, the village called it the snow garden, and every child brought a seed of their own. Lena watched it grow, her heart full, knowing that warmth can bloom even in the coldest place. So tonight, as you rest, think of a quiet patch of earth where snow and dreams sleep side by side, and anything is possible, even flowers in the snow. Deep in the mountains where stars sleep close to the trees, there was a little train that never hurried. Its name was Murmur, and it ran only at night. Murmur was no ordinary train. Its carriages were soft inside like clouds, its windows glowed like candlelight, and its tracks were woven with stardust. This train had one special purpose. It waited for dreams. Each night as the world fell quiet, Murmur would rest at the edge of a town, silent and still, until sleepy footsteps padded toward it. Children with tired eyes, grandparents wrapped in blankets, dreamers of all ages, these stepped onto the train carrying nothing but their imaginations. Train would not move until the last dreamer had boarded. It was never in a rush, because dreams take to moan when the door is gently closed. Murmur would begin to glide, and not with a rumble or a roar, but with a hush, like a lullaby on wheels. Through silent forests, under sleepy skies, past rivers that whispered and meadows that sighed, each dreamer would drift off, heads resting against the softest pillows, as the world outside turned into wonder castles on mountaintops, clouds shaped like whales, gardens with talking trees and glowing ponds. Murmur carried them through it all, with no map, no clock, only the rhythm of breath and the hush of sleep. When dawn came, the train would quietly return, slipping into the shadows before the birds began to sing. Dreamers would wake in their own warm beds, smiling softly, not sure if it had been real, but feeling lighter, as if their dreams had gone on a little journey of their own. And Murmur would wait again for the next night and the next dream. So now, as you close your eyes, imagine the train waiting just for you, gentle, glowing, ready to carry you wherever your dreams may go, and let sleep take you there. In a quiet valley beyond the hills where fog sleeps on the grass, there is a forest known only to a few, not because it was hidden, but because it waited for those who listened. The forest was old, so old that the trees curved like stories, and the wind between them carried secrets like threads. He said if you walked there at dusk, you might hear your name. One evening, a boy named Emil wandered into the forest. He was gentle and thoughtful and loved to sit by windows during rainstorms just to watch the drops recede. He stepped softly along the mossy path, barefoot, his breath quiet in the cool air above him. The trees stretched tall and slow, their branches like arms in a dream, and the leaves shimmered like tiny green bells. Emil listened, really listened. At first he heard a rustle, then a hum, then a hush. Then he heard it, a sound that was not a sound, like a voice in the wind. It whispered Emil just once, soft and kind. He paused. The wind did not blow, yet the trees swayed gently as if not. Stepped forward, and again the whisper came. Emily followed the sound through ferns and fallen leaves, past a small stream that glittered like silver thread, until he reached a clearing bathed in golden lighting. The middle stood an old tree, its bark nodded like a wise smile, its trunk wide enough to hold stories. Emil sat beneath it, his back against the warm wood, and the whisper came again. Not just his name, but others too, names of those who had wandered here, names of dreamers, of kind hearts, of quiet souls who once listened, stayed for a long time, eyes closed, hearing not words but feeling the forest speak. One He finally rose to leave. He felt different, not in a way he could explain, but lighter, as if something had been given, a gift made only of sound and stillness. Walked home slowly, the forest behind him whispering soft goodbyes. From that night on, whenever Emil sat quietly, even far from the trees, he could still hear the whisper like a song only his heart could hum. So now, as your head rests and the night settles in, let the wind carry soft words to your dreams and listen for you. May hear your name, gentle and true, from a forest that remembers. There was once a place few had ever seen, hidden just beyond the curtain of a gentle waterfall. It looked like nothing more than a shimmer of falling water, but behind it was a secreted garden that only opened when the moon was round and the night was quiet. Maya had heard of it from her grandmother, a story passed down like a lullaby. She always wondered if it was real or just a tale for dreamy hearts. An evening, she followed the path through the forest, lit only by fireflies and moonlight, until she reached the sound of falling water, soft and steady like a breath. Waterfalls sparkled in the silver light, and Maya stepped closer, the mist cool against her skin. Just as her grandmother said, a breeze shifted the veil of water and revealed an opening behind. Each stepped through, and what she saw made her heart slow and calm. A garden unlike any she had ever seen, flowers that glowed like stars, trees with silver bark, and ponds that reflected not just the sky but dreams. There were benches made of smooth stone covered in soft moss, and the air smelled like honey and moonbeams. Maya wandered gently, feeling the grass under her feet, listening to the soft hum of the leaves as if the plants were singing a lullaby of their own. In the center of the garden was a pool, so still it looked like glass. When Maya sat beside it, her reflection smiled softly back. She did not feel alone. Even though no one else was there, it was a place made for peace, a space for restand. As she closed her eyes, she felt the garden wrap around her like a warm blanket made of petals. And Solange did not know how long she sat there, minutes, hours, maybe only moments, but when she finally stood, she felt light, as if the garden had gently lifted her worries. Awe stepped back through the waterfall, which closed behind her like a whisper, and when she walked home, the stars above seemed closer, as if they too had visited the garden once. So now, as your eyes grow heavy, imagine stepping through your own quiet waterfall into a garden made just for you, soft, glowing, silent, and kind, waiting to carry your dreams gently into the night. In a wide open field where tall grass swayed like waves, there once stood a little house unlike any other. It had no roots, no foundation, no nails to hold it down. Instead, this house moved with the wind. Its walls were made of smooth wooden slats which could bend like branches. Its windows shifted shape depending on where the sun touched, and its roof was soft like canvas, gently flapping with the breeze. The house belonged to an old traveler named Leo. He had lived in many places, but now he chose to follow the wind. Wherever it whispered, the house would go. Some days the wind carried it to the sea, where waves splashed near the porch and seabirds circled above like floating kites. Other days it drifted toward the mountains, where clouds passed low enough to brush the rooftop and cold, crisp air sang through the eaves. Every evening, when the wind grew slow and sleepy, the house would come to rest, settling gently in a new quiet spot. Leo would light a lantern, make tea from herbs he gathered along the way, and sit by the window watching the stars find their places. Sometimes deer would wander nearby, sometimes children from nearby villages would wave as the house passed, and sometimes he would see no one for days but the moon in the sky. Inside the house, everything had a place: books on floating shelves, cups that rocked gently but never fell, blankets that held the warmth of every sun. The house had followed it, and each night the wind would sing softly through the walls, a lullaby made of distant places and quiet skies. Leo never worried about where he would go next. He simply trusted the breeze. It had never taken him anywhere he did not belong. No, as you rest, imagine your own house drifting quietly across the world, carried by a soft, warm wind, free, light, and safe lit. The rhythm of your breath matched the wind in out. A little house floating, resting, dreaming, and you inside it, held gently by the night. High above the hills, where the sky stretches wide and blue, there lived a little cloud named Pico. Pico was soft and fluffy, just like the others, but there was one small problem: Pico forgot how to fly. While the other clouds drifted gently through the sky, Pico would sink, hover, and sometimes spin in slow little circles. Tried to follow the wind, but he always fell a bit behind, and that made him feel like he didn't quite belong. On morning, as the sky turned a pale orange, Pico sat low over a quiet meadow. He sighed a slow cloud sigh and looked down at the world below. A small girl named Alina was walking through the grass, carrying a tiny satchel of seeds. She looked up and saw Pico hanging low and still. "Hello, little cloud," she said softly. "You look tired." Pico puffed out a little swirl and drifted closer. "I forgot how to float," he whispered in a soft sky voice. Alina smiled. "Maybe you don't need to float today," she said. "Maybe you're meant to rest." Sat down beneath Pico and opened her satchel. She began planting seeds one by one, and Pico watched quietly from a booth. Then Alina looked up again. "Could you help me water these?" she asked. Pico blinked, then gave a tiny squeeze. A light mist floated down like a gentle kiss from the sky. "I think you," said Alina, and Pico felt a little warmer inside, not because he floated, but because he had helped it. For the next few days, Pico stayed close to the meadow, not worrying about floating or drifting or catching. The wind shaded the flowers from the hot sun. He gave soft mist when the soil felt dry, and each night he glowed faintly in the moonlight, keeping watch while Alina slept nearby in her small cottage. Soon the seeds began to grow tall and green and bright, and Pico realized maybe he had not forgotten, maybe he had just found a different way to belong. As your eyes grow heavy, imagine lying in a field, soft mist brushing your cheeks, a quiet cloud above you keeping you company. You do not need to float tonight. You do not need to chase anything, just rest like Pico, held gently by the sky. In a forest where the trees grew tall and close, there was a train that made no sound. Its wheels turned gently, its lights glowed like stars, and its engine whispered like a soft breeze. This was not a train for speed. It was a train for dreaming. It only came at night, moving slowly along silver tracks that curved through groves of pine and fields of flowers. The air around it always smelled like rain and sweet leaves. Passengers were quiet too, not because they were told to be, but because the silence felt safe, like being wrapped in a soft blanket. There was a boy named Theo on the train tonight. He'd never seen a train like this before. His seat was wide and warm, and a soft blanket waited folded on the side outside the window. The trees swayed gently as if they were humming to themselves, and the moonlight turned every branch into silver lascias. The train moved it past small glowing lanterns hanging from trees. Little animals peeked from behind bushes, and waterfalls shimmered in the distance like glowing ribbons. Theo leaned his head on the glass, feeling the hum of the train in his bones. He watched as fireflies followed beside them like tiny lamps dancing in the dark train. Made a gentle turn, and a soft voice came through the air, not through speakers but like a dream whispering, "Tonight, you are safe tonight. You are carried tonight. You rest." Theo closed his eyes and imagined the trees watching over him, the stars above nodding slowly, and the train continuing forever through the night. Did not know where it would take him, but that was all right, because this train was not about arriving, it was about the journey. No, you two are on that train, rocking softly with each turn, surrounded by calm and quiet, wrapped in peace. Let the forest sing to you, let the night carry you, and let the dream train take you gently into sleep. On a quiet cliff above the sea stood an old lighthouse made of stone. It had watched over the ocean for many years, guiding ships with its steady warm light. Lighthouse had a name, though few remembered it now. They called it Solon, and each night Solon would wait for starsis. The sky turned dark. Solon's light would slowly turn, casting golden circles across the waves, soft and strong. Just like a heartbeat bellow, the sea moved in slow-sized waves, curling and falling, then rising again, as if the ocean itself was sleeping tonight. A soft fog rolled in from the water, wrapping around the cliffs like a blanket, and Solon blinked once, twice, then shone bright and steadying. A small house near the base of the cliff. An old keeper named El sipped warm tea. He looked out the window at the beam and smiled, whispered thank you like he always did, for Elric knew the lighthouse was more than stone. It was patient, it was patient, it was kind, and it always waited for the light to return. For off a quiet ship passed through the mist, its captain saw the beam steady and calm, and knew the way was Safethi. Stars peeked out above the clouds. Just a few at first, then more, until the sky sparkled like scattered sand. Solon watched the stars, listened to the wind, and waited, because soon, very soon, the sky would begin to pale, and the first soft glow of morning would rise behind the waves. Then Solon could rest. Just as the sun took over, shining gold on the Shinno. As you lie still and quiet, imagine you are beside that lighthouse, wrapped in a blanket of sea air, listening to waves, watching stars. You do not need to shine tonight. You only need to rest, for the morning will come, and you, like the lighthouse, will be ready. There once was a boy named Ellis who lived near a wide, slow river. Each morning the river shimmered under the sky, and each night it whispered secrets to the trees. Ellis loved to sit beside it, his toes in the cool water, watching the ripples drift away like thoughts floating into dream. Evening, as the sun dipped low, Ellis heard a gentle sound, a voice like soft rain calling from downstream. Come follow, come see, come rest. Curious and calm, Ellis stood and stepped onto the river path. His feet barely made a sound on the mossy stones, and the river flowed quietly beside him. Walked past tall grass that swayed in the breeze, past flowers that opened only in moonlight, and past small animals curled into sleep. The stars above began to twinkle one by one, and the sky turned a deep, gentle blue. Ellis felt peaceful, as though the river was guiding him not just through the forest but into stillness itself. Soon he came upon a small wooden bridge, and beneath it the river sang more clearly, its voice like a lullaby, telling him to rest, to listen, to breath. Helis sat on the bridge with his legs dangling, watching the moon reflect in the water. The ripples made the light dance like silver threads being woven into dreams. She leaned back, his head resting on the soft wooden planks. The river beneath, the stars above, and the quiet all around. In that moment Ellis felt as if the world had slowed down, like time itself was taking a long, deep breath. Did not know how far he had followed the river, and he did not need to, because this was not a path with an end, it was a path for Restigno. You are on that path to walking beside the quiet river, its voice soft, its pace gentle. Just like your breath, let the river carry your thoughts, let the stars carry your dreams, and let your body drift into the calm stillness of night. For, like Ellis, you are exactly where you need to be, safe, quiet, and ready to sleep. In a quiet forest where the leaves shimmered like glass, there stood a tree unlike any other. Its bark was pale and smooth, and its branches reached high like fingers touching the sky. They called it the Silver Tree, and deep beneath its roots, in a den soft with moss and leaves, lived a small red fox named Luma. Luma loved the quiet of the forest at night, when the stars peeked through the branches and the wind whispered old songs through the trees. Each evening she would leave her cozy den, step softly onto the forest floor, and listen. Tonight the air was cool and sweet, and the silver tree glowed faintly in the moonlight, as if it held a light deep inside, a light that hummed and warmed the air. Luma padded through the grass, her ears flicking at the sound of owls and distant streams. Everything was still, as if the forest itself was dreaming as she walked. The light of the silver tree followed her, not with beams but with a quiet shimmer like moonlight floating in the air. She passed sleeping deer nestled in tall grass, tiny mice curled in the hollows of trees, and wildflowers that only opened in the dark. When she returned to the silver tree, Luma curled at its roots, her tail wrapped around her like a blanket, and her eyes slowly closed. The tree above her hummed again, a soft sound like a lullaby, deep and gentle beneath the tree in the soft earth. The roots carried that hum through the forest, carrying dreams to all who slept near. Bino Imagine you are there beside Luma, the silver tree above the stars like quiet lanterns in the sky and the hum of the tree all around. Yo, feel your breath slow, feel the forest hold you gently and know that the night is long and calm and kindled. Fox sleeps, the forest sleeps, and now so can you. On a wide, gentle sea where the waves barely whispered, a small wooden boat floated under a sky full of stars. The sails were down, the oars were still, and in the center of the boat sat a young girl named Anash, leaned back, her head resting on a pillow of folded blankets, and watched the stars dance above her. The sea rocked the boat like a cradle, soft and slow. Ina closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them she saw something move across the sky. It was not a bird or a cloud. It was large and smooth, with a shape like a whale, drifting gently across the stars. Its body shimmered with soft silver light, and it made no sound. Just glided like a thought across the night. Ina sat up slowly, watching as the sky whale circled once above her, then dipped lower, its long fins brushing the edges of clouds. It passed a breeze, followed, cool and sweet like the air after rained sky. Whale drifted lower until it hovered just above the boat, and for a moment Ina could see its eye, calm and deep, filled with stars. Felt no fear, only wonder and peace, as if the whale had brought dreams down from the sky just for her. Then as slowly as it had come, the sky whale rose again up into the dark, leaving behind a trail of quiet silver. Mistana lay back down, her eyes soft, her breath slow, and the boat continued to drift. Waves were like gentle hands rocking her. The stars twinkled above, and the memory of the sky whale filled her with calm. No, imagine you are in that boat too. The sea quiet, the sky endless, and the whale somewhere above watching, guarding, guiding your dreams. You breathe in and out, and feel yourself float safe and still, just like Ina. You are ready to drift into sleep. The soft sound of a train rumbled gently through the night, its wheels turning slowly on silver tracks, gliding past hills covered in mist, through tunnels lit with glowing lanterns inside the train. The lights were low and warm, each seat a cozy nest of pillows and soft blankets, and in one of those seats a boy named Theo sat by the window, his eyes growing heavy. It had never been on a train like this before. It moved not through cities or countryside, but through a dreamy world high above the clouds. Theo leaned his head against the glass and watched as stars floated by so close he felt he could reach out and touch them. Clouds drifted gently below, soft and glowing like giant pillows. A voice came over the speaker, calm and kind, saying, "Next stop, Cloud Valley, home of floating lakes and sleepy winds." The train slowed, and outside the window Theo saw shapes in the clouds, tall trees made of mist, gentle waterfalls that flowed upward, and swans that glided through the sky with wings like silk. Train gently stopped, but Theo did not get off. He stayed in his seat, wrapped in his blanket. As the train waited, could hear a quiet flute playing somewhere nearby, its notes drifting through the train like feathers in the earth. And slowly the train began to move again, onward to another place in the clouds, each stop a dream, each mile a soft breath. Theo's eyes closed completely now, his thoughts floating, his body calm. The hum of the train became a lullaby, steady and soothing. Outside the sky grew even darker, the stars brighter, and the clouds began to glow with a gentle blue light. This was a train for dreamers, for travelers of sleep, for those ready to float far and free. No, imagine you are on that train, to your seat warm, your blanket soft, the stars close, and the train moving slowly, carrying you to Cloud Valley and beyond. With each breath you feel lighter, with each moment you drift deep earth. Sleepy train hums on, and so do your dreams. In a quiet harbor where the waves whispered soft secrets, a little wooden boat rocked gently beside the dock. Its paint was faded and its sail was small, but it had a big dream it wanted to follow. The moon. Every night the moon would rise above the water, glowing silver and soft, and the little boat would watch, thinking, "I wonder where the moon goes when it leaves the night." The tide rose higher than usual, and a gentle breeze tugged at the boat, as if inviting it to come along. So the little boat untied itself and began to drift quietly out into the open sea, following the glowing path the moon left on the water. The sea was calm, the stars twinkled above, and the moon looked down like an old friend guiding the way. Little boat floated past sleeping islands where palm trees swayed in their dreams, past dolphins who leapt silently through the dark waves, and jellyfish that shimmered beneath the surface like tiny lanterns, all the while the moon kept shining, always just ahead, always just close enough to follow. The boat felt no fear, only wonder, as the night wrapped around it like a blanket and the ocean rocked it gently. Soon the boat came to a place where the sea met the sky, and everything felt still, like the whole world was taking a deep breath. Moon hung low, casting its light over the boat, and in that moment the little boat felt it had arrived not at a place, but at a feeling, a soft, quiet joy of having followed a dream and found peace in the journey's love. The boat turned, letting the breeze carry it back toward the harbor where morning light was just beginning to stretch across the water. It returned to its place by the dock, rocking gently once more, but now with a secret smile, for it had followed the moon and found a dream worth holding in. Now as you rest, you can imagine yourself drifting to quiet and calm beneath the stars, following something beautiful all the way into sleep. In the middle of a wide golden desert where the sand stretches like a warm blanket, there is a secret place. Few have ever seen a valley hidden between gentle dunes where the stones whisper when the wind passes through. They are round and smooth and warm from the sun, each one shaped by time, each one holding stories from long ago. Evening, just as the sky turned orange and soft, a traveler named Layla arrived at the edge of the valley she had walked for many days, guided by starlight and the sound of silence. She sat down by one of the largest stones, closed her eyes and listened. At first there was nothing, just the hush of wind and the rustle of sand, but then soft and slow, the stones began to hum. They spoke in a language not of words, but of feelings, like warmth on the skin or the hush of night. They told stories of the sky of the time when stars first appeared, of quiet animals that walked these lands long ago, of rain that once danced on the sand. Layla smiled and leaned back on the warm ground, letting the stories drift around her like clouds in a dream. The desert cooled as the sun slipped away. The sky turned a deep velvet blue and the stars appeared one by one, each one seeming to listen to as the stones whispered into the night. Layla did not speak. She only breathed slow and gentle, her heart calm, her thoughts soft. Wind carried the whispers farther over dunes, across open sands, into places where dreams begin. And there, in the stillness of the desert night, Layla felt herself drift like a grain of sand, like a sigh from the earth, completely at peace. So now, as you lie still and quiet, imagine those ancient stones, soft and warm, whispering just to you, and let their stories carry you gently into sleep. Deep in a quiet forest where the air is cool and still, there is a tree older than time. It stands alone in a small clearing, its branches wide and full, its leaves soft and silver in the moonlight. This is no ordinary tree, for when the stars rise, the tree it begins to breathe. It is said the forest itself falls asleep to its breath. The winds quiet, the animals hush, and the earth listens. In night, a young boy named Aaron wandered into the forest. He had been walking for hours, following the sound of a gentle breeze that seemed to call his name. He reached the clearing just as the stars began to shine, and there it stood, tall, calm, glowing softly in the dark. Aaron stepped closer, feeling warmth in the air around the tree, as if it were alive, as if it knew he was there. Sat at its roots, closed his eyes and listened. Its tree breathed in and the leaves shimmered gently. The tree breathed out and the ground seemed to hum slowly. Aaron matched his breath to the tree's, in and out, soft and steady, deep and calm. With each breath the world around him faded, the forest melted into silence, the stars twinkled above like slow blinking lights, and the tree whispered not with words but with peace. Aaron leaned back, his head resting against the bark. The air smelled of earth and sky. His thoughts slowed, his breath depended, and as he sat there he felt the stars breathing with him too, in and out, like the whole night was rocking him gently to sleep. And now you are there too, in that quiet clearing, with the stars above and the breathing tree beside. Your breath slows, your body softens, your thoughts drift, and the night wraps you in stillness. Let the tree breathe for you now, and let the stars carry you gently into sleep. High above the hills where the sky turns soft and blue, there float gentle clouds, not heavy with rain but light with dreams. They drift slowly as if they have nowhere to go, only moving where the wind hums a lullaby. In this sky lives a young cloud named Puffy. He is smaller than the others, fluffier and rounder and very curious. Puffy often asked, where do the dreams go when people fall asleep? The older clouds would smile and say, we carry them through the sky so they stay safe until morning. Puffy wanted to help, so one night he waited for the stars to rise and followed the dream clouds below. A quiet village began to sleep. Windows glowed soft with candlelight, and one by one the lights faded. Puffy floated low. Just above the rooftops he saw a little girl with her eyes closed, her thoughts sparkling like fireflies, and then a dream rose gently from her window. It looked like a swirl of color and music and light. Puffy reached out with his soft cloud hands and caught it. It felt warm like a wish wrapped in a wisp, carried it higher where the air was still, and placed it gently beside the other dreams already drifting through the sky. And by one dreams floated up from every house, small and glowing, each one different, some shaped like animals, some like stars, some like tiny boats sailing through the night. And Puffy helped, carefully guiding each dream, making sure it didn't fall off. The night grew quieter, the clouds moved slower, heavier now with dreams, but Puffy felt proud. He was part of something gentle, something magical. And when the morning sun rose, the dreams melted into the light, returning to the hearts they came from, leaving behind a soft glow of peace. Puffy looked down, smiled, and curled up inside a golden beam of sunlight, ready to reach, just like you, now safe and light, like a dream floating on a soft cloud, carried gently into sleep. Deep in a quiet forest where the trees whisper secrets and the wind hums soft songs, there is a path lined with glowing lanterns. Lanterns are not hung by people, they appear only when the stars come out, lighting the way for those who wander. At night or evening, a gentle traveler named Ilya stood at the edge of the forest. She had soft shoes and a small pack and a heart full of questions. The sun had just dipped below the hills, leaving the world wrapped in a sleepy purple light. Ilya saw the first lantern flicker to life, floating gently above the ground, stepped forward and another lantern appeared, then another, each one lighting up just before she reached it, as if the forest was waiting for her. The path curved gently between the trees, and the soft yellow glow of the lanterns danced on the leaves. Shadows swayed like sleepy dancers, and the air smelled like pine and quiet. Renelia felt no fear, only a deep calm, as if the forest knew her, as if the light understood her. Dream's birds had already tucked themselves in and tiny creatures rustled in the bushes, but all were peaceful watching her passes. She walked. She noticed things she had never seen before: a flower that opened only at night, a tree that sang when the breeze passed through its branches, a small pond that reflected not just the stars above but dreams floating just beneath the surface. Ilya knelt by the pond and saw her own reflection turn into a memory, a dream she had as a child of finding a glowing path that led to a secret place, and here she was now following that very path, held by the light of gentle lanterns and the silence of kind. Trish stood again, her heart warm and steady. The lanterns continued curving deeper into the forest, leading her to rest, to wonder, to peace, and as she followed, the stars above seemed to drift lower as if to keep her companion somewhere far away. An owl called softly, and the world hushed. Ilya breathed slowly, her footsteps softer now, as if her body was already beginning to dream. Soon she would find a place where the lanterns stopped, a clearing where the grass felt like a bed and the air smelled like sleep. She would lie down beneath the sky and let the quiet carry her, just like you, now following your own soft path into calm, into stillness, into the quiet glow of sleep. High above the clouds, where the stars whisper and the moon hums, there floats an island made of mist and dreams. No one knows when it appeared, but sometimes on the quietest nights you can see it drifting slowly, a soft shadow glowing faintly with starlight. A gentle breeze carries the island across skies deep and wide, over oceans and mountains, never stopping, always floating. Gone night. A boy named Leaf was looking out his window, his room quiet, his blanket warm, when he saw the island drift past the moon. His eyes grew wide, and without thinking he climbed out onto the roof and reached toward the sky. A soft wind lifted him gently, as if the island itself had heard his wish, and he rose slowly like a feather caught in a dream. Up through the night, through clouds that felt like pillows, he floated until his feet touched soft moss, and he stood on the drifting island. The ground was cool and damp, and the air smelled like old stories. The trees were tall and silver, and their leaves shimmered like water. Glowing mushrooms lit the paths, and tiny lights floated through the air like sleepy fireflies with nowhere to go. Leaf walked slowly, his heart beat quiet, his eyes wide with wonder. He passed a pool that reflected not just the stars but dreams, old ones and new ones, hovering like bubbles just beneath the surface. He passed a tree that sang softly when the wind touched it, a lullaby made of wind and leaf and memorial. Then at the center of the island was a clearing, and the clearing was a bed of moss and soft petals, and above it hung the stars closer than ever. Life lay down, and the island cradled him like a boat on a still lake. The sky moved slowly above him, and the island drifted gently on, through dreams, through silence, through soft, endless sleep. And now, as you breathe slowly, feel the air grow calm, and picture that drifting island floating quietly just beyond the stars, waiting for you to rest, to dream, to drift. In a quiet corner of the world where the stars hang low and the moon moves slow, there is a forest made only of pine trees, tall and thin, soft and still. They stand in rows like guardians of silence. Trees do not speak with words, they speak with whispers, and only to those who truly listen. One evening, a girl named Clara walked into the forest, her boots gentle on the earth, her breath soft in the cold air. She had come to find quiet, to be away from the world, and the forest welcomed her. The pines leaned just slightly as she passed, their needles brushing one another, making a sound like distant whirrs. Followed a narrow path lined with fallen pine cones and patches of moss, and the deeper she went, the more the forest began to whisper. At first the sound was faint, like the wind writing letters on the bark, but soon she could almost understand, not in words but in feelings. Trees were telling her about time, about patience, about how they had stood for 100 winters, how they had watched the sky change and never hurried. Clara sat down at the base of an old pine, its trunk wide and warm. The ground beneath was soft, as if it had been waiting for her. She leaned back and closed her eyes. Forest whispered still, telling her of stars born in silence, of rain that sang, of animals who passed through like ghosts. Clara felt her breath slow, her thoughts quiet, as if the trees had taken her worries and carried them away on the wind. Air was filled with pine scent, fresh and clean, and the sky above was deep blue with tiny stars beginning to blink away somewhere. An owl called out once, then fell quiet again, and the forest, still and soft, whispered a lullaby only she could hear. And now you can imagine yourself there in the whispering forest of Quietville, the stillness, the calm, the soft hush of the trees around you, and let yourself drift gently into sleep, carried by the quiet voices of a forest made for dreaming. Far out in a quiet ocean there was a small island. It was shaped like a sleeping whale and covered with soft grass and tiny flowers. The waves whispered gently to its shores, and the wind moved slowly through its trees. But this island, more than anything, dreamed of stars. Each night, when the sky grew dark and the sun slipped far away, the island would look up, waiting for the stars to approach. They came slowly, one by one, like tiny lanterns lighting up the nights. Island loved their gentle glow and wished it could float into the sky just for one night, to be among them. Stars would sparkle and twinkle. They would sing their soft songs, songs that only the island could hear. One evening, as the moon rose full and round, a soft voice drifted across the waves. It was the voice of a starlight bird, a glowing creature with feathers like silk. She landed on the tallest tree and said to the island, "Close your eyes, little one, and tonight your dream will come true." So the island closed its eyes and breathed deeply, and something magical began to happen. Roots of the trees shimmered, the sand sparkled, and slowly, softly, the island began to rise higher and higher above the see-through clouds that felt like warm blankets until it reached the edge of the sky, and there it floated among the stars. They welcomed it with gentle light. They danced around the island and told stories from across the universe. Scythe Island listened, quiet and full of wonder, and for the first time it felt like it belonged among them. All night the stars glowed softly and the island glowed with them until the sun began to rise again, and it slowly floated back down to its place in the sea. But from that night on, even when it rested in the water, the island carried a gentle glow, a memory of the stars, a dream come true. And now as you rest, you too can drift gently like the island into the sky of dreams, where stars sing softly and everything feels calm and safe. In the heart of a quiet desert where the stars are bright and the wind moves slowly, there lived a family of sand dunes. They were tall and gentle, shaped by the breeze and warmed by the sumac night. When the world grew still, the dunes would begin to whisper. Their voices were soft and low, like the hush of a breeze through dry grass. No one knew what they whispered about, but it was said that if you listened closely, you could hear stories older than time, carried on the wind like a lullaby. On night, a tired traveler arrived. His name was Sami. He had walked far, his feet were dusty and his eyes full of dreams. Lay down between two dunes, and the moment his head touched the sand, he felt the whispers begin. He spoke to him not with words but with memories of cool starlight, of camels crossing gently under the moon, of ancient songs carried by caravans and fires flickering under the sky. Sand seemed to breathe with him, slow and deep, and the more he listened, the lighter he felt, as if the stories were lifting his thoughts. Like dunes whispered to each other and to him, telling him he was safe, that the desert watched over him and the stars were his blanket. Dreamed of drifting, floating across endless sand where every grain had a tale to tell and every whisper wrapped around him like a hug. In the morning the sun rose slow and golden, but Sami did not wake right away. He stayed still, smiling in his sleep as the whispers slowly faded back into silence. And now as you lie down, you too can imagine those whispering dunes telling you their ancient songs, helping you drift gently into peaceful dreams. In a small village by a quiet lake, there was an old wooden shop filled with curious things. It was a place where people came to find forgotten treasures, and in the back of that shop, behind dusty shelves and crooked clocks, sat a single lantern. This lantern was not like the others. It had no wick, no oil, and no flame. Yet every evening as the sky turned soft with twilight, the lantern would begin to glow. Gentle, warm light, soft as a candle, steady as a heartbeat. People in the village called it the dreaming lantern, and no one knew where it came from. One day, a young girl named Leela entered the shop. She loved quiet things and she loved stories. When she saw the lantern, she felt drawn to it as if it had something to tell her. The shopkeeper smiled and said, "It only lights up when the world needs." Calm, Leela took the lantern home, and that night she placed it by her window. As the moon rose, the lantern began to glow. Light filled her room, soft and golden. She sat beside it and felt peaceful, like all her worries had floated away. At night she sat with the lantern, sometimes reading, sometimes dreaming, sometimes just listening to the night. The lantern glowed brighter than ever, and Lila closed her eyes. In that light she felt herself drifting, floating gently, as if carried by a soft wind. Found herself in a quiet forest filled with glowing trees and fireflies. Everything shimmered, and the air was full of dreams. There were no words, just feeling, just peace. When she woke, the lantern was still glowing, quiet and calm. Its job was not to shine, but to soothe. And from that day on, everyone who visited Lila sat by the lantern and left with a quiet heart. You too can imagine that glowing light, steady and warm, resting beside you, helping you drift into soft, gentle sleep. On top of a soft green hill where the grass moved like waves in the wind, there stood a single tree. Its branches stretched wide like gentle arms and its leaves shimmered like tiny feathers. People who lived in the valley below called it the whispering tree. They said it could talk, not with words but with sounds. Soft rustling sounds that made you feel calm, like being rocked in a cradle of wintry evening. As the sun began to sleep, the breeze would carry the tree's soft whispers down the hill, and anyone who listened would feel their worries float away. A little boy named Elian loved to visit the tree. He would climb halfway up the hill, spread out a blanket and lie on his back, watching the sky change from gold to pink to blue. The tree always greeted him with its gentle voice. It would hum and sigh, and Elian would close his eyes, feeling as if the earth was breathing with him. One day he asked the tree, "What are you saying?" The leaves rustled slowly, softly, like a lullaby. And though Elian could not understand the words, he felt their meaning. Still be safe, be homite was a feeling more than a sound, like a warm blanket for the heart. On cloudy days when the sky was gray, Elian would still visit, and the tree would whisper even louder, reminding him that even in shadows there is softness. The villagers began to notice too. They would walk up the hill and sit quietly, just listening, and soon even the busiest minds felt quiet near the tree. As seasons changed, the tree remained, always whispering, always gentle, always there. And on one very quiet night, when stars lit up the whole sky, Elian sat beneath the tree, eyes closed, smiling, felt the wind move through the leaves, and he whispered back, "Thank you, and if you listen now, wherever you are, you might feel it too, the hush of wind through the leaves telling you gently it is time to rest." Once upon a time there was a small paper boat folded gently by a child's hands placed on the edge of a quiet river. Stars had just begun to sparkle and the moon hung low and golden, casting soft silver light on the water. The little boat rocked gently at the shore, waiting for the current to take it on a journey soon. The water stirred, a calm ripple pushed the boat forward, and it began to float downstream. The boat made no sound, only the hush of the river and the soft rustle of leaves kept it companion. Either side of the river fireflies blinked like floating stars, lighting the way as the paper boat drifted on. Every now and then a frog would croak or an owl would call gently from a tree above, but mostly there was stillness. The boat moved, it passed under arched branches, like tunnels of green, and over soft swirls in the current. Each twist and turn was like a slow dance, and the boat felt lighter than air. Soon the boat floated by a family of ducks. They bobbed gently in the water, watching with sleepy eyes. They gave the boat a quiet nod as if to say, "Sweet dreams." Little Treveleth Moon followed the boat, casting a silver trail on the water. The boat felt warm under its glow, as though the moon itself was guiding it. Home at last. The river began to slow, and the boat drifted toward the edge of a lily-filled pond. The water was still like glass, and the boat stopped, floating quietly in the middle above the stars. Twinkled brighter, and the moon rested right above the pond, casting soft light over the world. Paper boat, gentle and still, rested in peace, rocked by the water, held by the moon. In that moment the night was calm, the world was quiet, and everything was exactly as it should. It is time to rest now and let the river carry your thoughts softly and slowly into dreams. High on a golden hill where the grass whispers with the wind lived a gentle giraffe named Lulu. She had long legs, a soft smile, and spots that looked like patches of sunlight. Every evening as the sky turned orange and pink, Lulu would walk to the top of Sunset Hill. It was her favorite time, when the world slowed down and everything felt soft and sleepy. Birds flew low, their wings fluttering gently. Clouds stretched across the sky like sleepy pillows, and the air smelled sweet like flowers and warm earth. Lulu would find her favorite tree, a tall acacia, with branches that reached out like a big hug. She would nibble a few leaves and then sit down slowly, her long neck folding gently as she curled beside the tree. Hill was quiet except for the sounds of the wind in the grass and the distant chirp of crickets waking up for the night. Sometimes a butterfly would land on Lulu's nose and she would smile softly, her eyes blinking slow like falling petals. She watched as the sun melted behind the hills, painting the sky in soft strokes of peach and lavender. Her heart felt calm, her breathing slowed, and all around her the world yawned on by one. The stars peeked out like tiny lanterns, lighting the night sky, and Lulu felt the gentle rhythm of the world preparing to rest. She let her eyes close, listening to the hush of the breeze and the soft rustle of the tree leaves above her. Her dreams, she wandered through golden fields, her hooves soft against the earth clouds, floating low enough to kiss her head. And as she slept beneath a starlit sky, the hill stood still, quiet and peaceful, wrapped in the hush of night. It is time to rest now, to let the world slow down and float gently into a dream. Just like Lulu on Sunset Hill, deep in a quiet forest where pine trees touched the sky, there lived a kind old bear named Bramble. He had soft brown fur, slow heavy paws, and eyes that sparkled like tiny stars. Each night when the moon rose, Bramble would climb to the top of Sleepy Peak, a gentle hill just beyond the whispering woods. He would sit on a smooth stone, look up at the sky, and begin to count the stars. And by one, he would whisper their numbers, his voice low and dreamy like a song carried on the wind. Sometimes an owl would join him, blinking slowly from a branch above. Sometimes a deer would lie nearby, its eyes half closed, listening to the soft sound of counting stars, twinkled gently like tiny candles in the night sky. And Bramble never rushed. His counting was slow and peaceful, a rhythm like breathing, like waves on a quiet lake. And some nights clouds would drift across the stars and Bramble would smile. He knew the stars were still there, just hiding for a little while. Would close his eyes and count them in his mind instead, imagining each one shining bright and warm. As the night grew deeper, the forest grew still, crickets sang their quiet song, leaves rustled like whispers, and the wind moved gently through the trees. Bramble would yawn, his voice growing softer, his numbers slower, until at last he stopped counting altogether, would curl up beside his stone, his nose tucked under one paw, his dreams filled with stars and skies and peaceful quiet. If you listen closely, you can still hear his counting in the wind, soft and slow like a lullaby to Threend. Just like Bramble, you can rest now, feel the stars above, and drift into a gentle sleep. The night sky was painted with soft blues and gentle silvers. A crescent moon hung low like a quiet smile, and in a tiny country station a train waited quietly on the tracks. This was no ordinary train, this was the Sleepy Train. It had cozy velvet seats, pillows on every window, and lights that glowed like fireflies. Sleepy Train only came out at bedtime, and it only had one destination, Whisper Valley, the calmest, quietest place in the world. Tonight, a little girl named Leela climbed aboard. She wore a soft scarf and held a tiny stuffed fox in her arms. She found a window seat, settled in, and watched as the world began to blur. The train gave a gentle hum, almost like a lullaby, and slowly it started to move. Click-clack, soft and steady outside the window. Meadows glided by, glowing with moonlight. Trees waved their sleepy branches and hills rolled like pillows in the dark. Leela leaned her head back The fox in her arms was already dreaming, and Lila soon followed her breath slow, her thoughts quiet as the train rolled on. The conductor walked past. He wore a tall blue hat and a smile as warm as a blanket. He gently placed a soft wool blanket over Lila's legs and whispered, "Almost there, little dreamer." The train passed over a glassy river. Stars reflected like tiny lanterns in the water. An owl flew beside them, its wings silent, its eyes wise and slothful. The train dipped into a tunnel, and when it came out, the world had changed. There were glowing flowers along the tracks, sleepy deer resting under glowing trees. The sky above shimmered like velvet, and in the distance the hills of Whisper Valley rose like a dream. The train gave a final hum soft as a sigh and came to a stop beside a field of floating lights. Lila yawned but did not wake. Someone lifted her gently, carrying her into a soft cloud-like bed under a sky full of star sand. The sleepy train waited quietly once more, ready for the next dreamer, ready for the next night. In a small village near the edge of a deep forest, a little boy named Ren lit a paper lantern. It was evening, and the sky was soft with the colors of twilight, pinks and purples melting into the first stars. Ren had drawn a picture on the lantern, a bird with wide wings flying high above the mountains. He wished for a dream that would take him far away, where skies were open and winds were warm. He let the lantern go, and the wind gently lifted it first, slowly, then higher and higher, still, and watched until it became a golden dot in the sky. But what he did not know was that the lantern had a little bit of magic inside, and it had heard his wished. Lantern floated above the trees, gliding with the breeze. It passed over rivers that sparkled like silver ribbons and mountains that hummed with the hush of old stories. Deep in sleep, Ren began to dream. In his dream, he followed the lantern. His feet never touched the ground, and his heart felt light as air flew over lakes with glassy surfaces where the stars kissed the water. He passed through clouds that whispered lullabies, and he laughed soft and quiet in his sleep. The lantern floated through a valley of feathers, white ones drifting in the air like snow, then over a field where glowing butterflies danced their wings, making no sound, just shimmer, and lithe wind carried them to the edge of the world, a gentle cliff that overlooked a sea of dreams. Waves of light moved below, each one holding a story, a memory. A wished lantern paused, and so did Ren, both floating still and silent, as if the whole sky had stopped a breath. And the wind gave one last soft push, and the lantern rose into the stars, leaving behind a trail of gold that slowly faded. Ren smiled in his sleep, his wish carried away safe with the wind and the lantern that listened. One morning came. The village was still, and the sky was clear, but Ren woke with a heart full of wonder and the quiet memory of flying gun. Somewhere far above, a little lantern floated, still glowing with a dream. In a quiet meadow where soft grass swayed like water, there stood an old tree, taller than all the others. Its branches stretched wide and slow, like arms that had been reaching for years. No one knew how long the tree had been there, but some said it was planted by a dream, and others believed it grew from a single whispered wish. Beneath this tree, a girl named Luma would sit every evening. She would close her eyes and tell her dreams to the wind. She told stories of flying through clouds, of finding seashells that sang, and of talking to stars that blinked like gentle ice. Tree listened. It always listened. Its leaves would rustle gently even when there was no breeze. Its bark would glow faintly when the sky turned gold. Before night would rest against its trunk and slowly drift into sleep, wrapped in warmth and soft silence. On night, she dreamed of a stairway made of moonlight. It led up through the air into a sky full of soft floating islands. She stepped gently from cloud to cloud, meeting creatures made of light and music. They told her that the tree was not just a tree, it was a keeper, a guardian of dreams. They said the tree remembered every dream told beneath it. It held them in its rings, in the gentle curl of every leaf, in the soft green that shimmered even in moonlight. When Luma woke, she looked up at the tree, and for the first time she noticed something new. The leaves shimmered in colors that matched her dreams, soft white, silver, a little blue, and for just a moment she saw shapes floating in the air around the branches, a staircase of light, a cloud like a boat, and a creature made of quiet humming. Smiled, not with surprise but with the peace of knowing that her dreams had a home. From that day on, the tree seemed even older, even kinder, and each evening as Luma lay beneath it, she knew she was sharing her heart with something that remembered. And so the dreams continued, soft, bright, gently. The tree stood quietly, keeping them all safe, leaf by leaf, night by night. Far beyond the towns and cities, past the rivers and the forests, there was a desert where the wind moved like a song. And in the heart of this desert there was a place called Mira Dunet. Was not like any other dune, for when the wind passed over it, the sand would whisper soft and low, like it was telling stories older than Timia. A boy named Sami once wandered into this desert. He was not lost, only curious. His village was quiet and still, but his dreams were full of motion and mystery. Followed the stars at night and the shape of the dunes by day, until one evening he stood before the tallest dune he had ever seen. It shimmered in gold and pale rose as the sun dipped below the horizon. Climbed to the top slowly, each step sinking softly into the warm grains. When he reached the top, he sat down and listened. At first there, it was only the wind, but then he began to hear it, a gentle sound, not quite words but not silence. Ithirth Dune whispered. It told him of the wind's journey from faraway oceans. It shared the memory of an owl who once flew across the sky for 7 nights. It spoke of a single flower that bloomed under the moonlight for just 1 hour. Long ago, Sami closed his eyes and listened to Beep, felt the sand holding him gently as if it remembered every traveler, every dreamer who had ever come to rest there. Dreamed of ancient footsteps and songs that never ended. He saw patterns of stars shift into stories and stories fold into quiet sleep. When he woke, the moon was high, the wind was soft, and the dunes still whispered. Sami smiled. He did not need to speak. He simply rested his hand on the sand and the dune understood from. That night on, he returned to Mira Dune not to find answers, but to listen, to feel the calm, and to dream. Dune kept whispering and Sami kept dreaming, and the desert watched, silent and full of secrets, soft and endless as sleep itself. There was once a quiet little station at the edge of the world where no ordinary train ever came. Only one train ever stopped there. And it did not run on coal or steam or wheels of iron. It ran on stardust. Every night when the clock struck midnight, the sky above the station would shimmer, and from the darkness a soft glow would appear. It was the stardust train, long and silver, silent and bright, with windows that looked out into galaxies and doors that opened without a sound. No one knew where the train truly came from, and no one ever heard it arrive. It simply appeared, floating just above the ground, waiting. All night, a boy named Arian sat alone on the platform. He was not waiting for any train. He was only watching the stars, his eyes heavy with sleep, his thoughts soft and slow. He saw it glow, that shimmer. The train doors opened gently, and without thinking, Arian stepped inside. Seats were made of clouds, soft and cool, and the walls were painted with stars that moved, twinkling gently like they were breathing. The train began to move, not fast, not loud, just a smooth, gentle glide through the sky outside the windows. Arian saw planets spin slowly, comets drift by, and moons rising one after another like pearls on a string. Stars outside whispered to him stories of floating cities, of sleeping whales that drifted through space, of glowing gardens on planets where time moved slower than dreams. Arian leaned against the soft seat, his eyes blinking slowly, his body relaxing. The train passed through a ribbon of silver dust, and everything felt still and calm. The stars hummed a lullaby, the seat cradled him like a cloud, and his breath grew deeper, slower. Did not know how long he traveled, a minute, an hour, or forever, but when he opened his eyes again, the train had returned. The doors opened and the soft glow faded into the sky. Arian stood alone on the platform, the stars above him quiet. The station still smiled, knowing the train had not been a dream but a gift. From that night on, he always slept with the stars in view, hoping one day the stardust train would return, soft as night, bright as wonder, ready to carry him once more into dreams. Beneath a still quiet lake, hidden deep in the heart of the forest, there was a library unlike any library on land. This one rested at the very bottom, floating gently above soft sand and smooth stones, its windows glowing softly like lanterns, its roof covered in moss and little white flowers, and the water around it was always calmer. But he knew how the library came to be there. But some said it was built by the old fish who loved stories. Others believed it drifted down slowly from the sky one evening and simply decided to stay. The library had no doors. You simply had to believe in it. Close your eyes, and when you opened them again, you would find yourself standing inside your night. A girl named Lena wandered down to the lake. The moon was high, the air was still, and she could not sleep. She sat by the shore listening to the soft ripple of water when suddenly she heard a gentle hum beneath the surface like a lullaby made of water and wind. Closed her eyes just for a moment, and when she opened them, she was standing inside the library. Water was all around her, but she was dry, and the books, oh the books, floated in midair, turning their own pages, whispering softly, telling stories of dreaming whales, of raindrops who but became stars, of clouds that wrote poetry. There were no librarians, only the gentle fish who swam between the shelves, sometimes stopping to rest beside a glowing book, sometimes nudging a story toward Lena as if to say, this one is just for you. Wandered slowly, her footsteps, silent breathing in the soft glow of the place. She found a book that shimmered like a moonbeam, and when she opened it, a story began to rise up like mist, curling into shapes and colors. Story told of a tiny cabin made of glass where the night sky was the ceiling and the stars whispered dreams to those who listened. As Lena listened, her body relaxed, her thoughts slowed, her breath deepened, and her eyes grew heavy. She curled up in a chair made of water and silk, the book floating just above her, still glowing, still whispering. And as the story swirled around her, she felt herself drift gently into sleep. When she woke again, she was back by the lake, the moon just beginning to fade, the air soft and warm. She smiled softly, hugged her knees, and looked out over the still water. Somewhere down below, the library waited quiet and glowing, a secret place where dreams were kept safe and stories never ended. High in the mountains where the sky touches the hills, there is a tiny village hidden among the drifting clouds. Houses are soft and round, painted in gentle shades of blue and white, with roofs made of woven feathers and windows shaped like crescent moons. People of this village move slowly, not because they are tired, but because the air is so calm and still. Every step feels like a soft breath, every word is a whisper, and every moment stretches like a dream. In the center of the village, there is a bell. It never rings loudly, just a gentle Hum once at sunrise, once at sunset. This bell is made of cloudstone, a rare gift from the sky, and its hum reminds everyone that it is time to rest, to breathe, to dream. A boy named Elliot lives in this village. His hair is the color of snow and his eyes reflect the clouds above. Each night before bed, he walks the winding paths of the village, his soft lantern glowing like a star in his hand, visits each neighbor offering a quiet good night, sometimes sharing a story, sometimes just sitting quietly beside them watching the clouds pass slowly by. When he finishes his walk, he climbs to the very top of the hill where a single tree stands, alone, its leaves shaped like soft white petals, its trunk smooth and cool. To the touche sits beneath the tree and listens not to noise but to the hush, the deep peaceful hush that fills the village. Every night's clouds drift gently, sometimes brushing against the rooftops, sometimes wrapping the village in their soft arms, and when they do, everything, it slows even more, as if time itself is falling. As Elliot lies down beneath the tree, his lantern resting beside him, his eyes growing heavier as the clouds curl around him like a blanket, stars begin to appear soft and sleepy, winking slowly, and one by one the lights in the village dimmed. Bell hums one last time, a note so soft it feels like a heartbeat. And in the sleepy village of drifting clouds, everyone dreams together, floating through the night on pillows of mist, wrapped in warmth and held in quiet peace. Far beyond the hills where the grass grows tall and golden, there is a wide open field that glows at night with tiny stars that rest upon the earth. This field is quiet, always waiting, always listening as the wind moves slowly, like a soft breath over the hills. A girl named Myra walks this field every evening, barefoot and slow, her feet brushing the tops of the glowing grass, each step lighting a small spark. Beneath her she wears a shawl made of moonlight woven by her grandmother long ago, and when it moves in the breeze, it sounds like soft whispers, like stories being told gently to the sky. The stars in the field are not like stars above. They do not shine, they do not burn. Instead, they hum a soft, steady hum like a lullaby for the earth itself. As Myra walks, she hums to her voice, joining the quiet song of the field, and the stars blink slowly in return, as if they are listening, as if they remember her. In the center of the field, there is a stone, round and smooth, cool to the touch. Myra sits there each night and listens, hears the stars telling tales of old dreams and gentle rain of falling leaves and long ago wishes. She never speaks, just listens, eyes closed, face soft, heart open. Sometimes, if the night is just right, a star will rise from the grass, floating like a feather, drifting into the sky, joining its brothers and sisters above. Myra always watches it go, a smile on her lips, a wish in her heart. She never says her wish out loud because the field already knows it, hears every whisper in the wind, every hope in the hush of night. As the moon rises high, Myra lies back on the stone. The stars around her quiet now, their hum fading into stillness, and the sky leans low, blanketing the field in soft blue. Her eyes begin to close, her breath slows, and the field holds her gently, like it has held every dreamer before her. Stars stay close, glowing softly in the grass, watching over her, singing the earth to sleep. And so the night goes on, quiet and warm in the whispering field of stars, where every step is soft, every breath is slow, and every dream is cradled in light. In a quiet village by the sea, there is a bridge that appears only once a year, when the moon is full and round and the water is still and calm. This bridge is not made of stone or wood, it is made of lanterns, soft glowing lights that float gently on the water, stretching far across the bay like a glowing path to the stars. A young boy named Elliot waits each year for this night. He carries a single lantern, small and golden, with a wish written carefully on its side. He holds it close as he walks down to the shore, barefoot and quiet, his heart full of wonder. Village is silent, everyone gathered at the water's edge, watching as the first lantern appears, then another, until a trail of light stretches out over the sea. Elliot steps gently onto the lantern bridge. His feet do not sink, the lanterns hold him soft and steady, warm beneath his toes. Each step sends a ripple of light through the water, like stars dancing just beneath the surfaces. He walks farther, the air grows still. The night wraps around him like a soft blanket, and the lanterns hum a gentle glowing sound like the sea singing a lullaby. Passes others, each one holding a lantern, each one walking with care. No one speaks, but there are smiles and nods and hearts full of quiet hope. Near the middle of the bridge, Elliot pauses. He kneels and sets his lantern down, watching it float slowly away, joining the others drifting into the darkness, carrying his wish with whispers, thank you, not to anyone in particular, but to the night, to the sea, to the magic of the bridge that lets dreams float free. Lies back gently on the lantern path, looking up at the sky. The stars above mirror the lights below, and he feels as though he is floating between two worlds, held softly in the arms of night. His eyes grow heavy, his breath deep and slow, and the lanterns around him flicker softly, keeping him safe until the bridge fades with the dawn and the sea returns to quiet. But Alien's dream drifts on, carried by light, guided by stars, and held forever by the bridge of floating lanterns. In a quiet town filled with ticking sounds, there lived an old clockmaker named Silas. His little shop stood at the corner of a cobbled street, where time seemed to slow down. As soon as you entered, Silas had white hair and kind eyes. His hands were gentle and careful, and he spent his days fixing clocks of all shapes and sizes, grandfather clocks with deep chimes, tiny pocket watches with soft ticking, and cuckoo clocks with little wooden birds. But Silas had a secret. Each night when the town slept, he would close his eyes and drift into a dream where time no longer followed rules. In his dream, he would float through a sky of golden gears, watching stars tick and talk like giant cosmic clocks, planets turning on silver springs and moons swinging gently on invisible pendulums. And night the dream changed. Silas found himself in a great round room with walls made of glass and light. In the center stood a clock, taller than a tree. Its hands moved slowly, but not in circles. They moved in spirals, each tick echoing like a soft bell in the air. A voice came from the center of the clock, gentle and deep. "Thank you, Silas," it said, "for listening to the heartbeat of time, for caring for the little seconds." And the quiet hours-old clockmaker smiled in his sleep and asked, "What is this, Placitas?" "Is the dream of time itself," the voice answered, "and only those who truly love it may visit." Silas walked slowly through the dream, touching clouds made of soft ticking mist, watching as moments floated past like bubbles, each one glowing with memory. A child's laugh, a hug between friends, a sunrise over snow. Felt peace in every step, his heart calm, his mind quiet. And though he was dreaming, everything felt real and warm and still. It did what felt like forever and no time at all. The voice whispered once more, "Return now and carry this calm with you. Keep making time gentle, keep fixing broken moments." Silas woke just before dawn in his little shop, surrounded by clocks, the ticking softer somehow, like a lullaby meant only for Hyman. From that day on he worked even more gently, smiling to himself as he wound each spring, as if he knew that somewhere time itself was smiling back. Deep in an ancient forest where the trees whispered to one another and the air smelled of moss and quiet earth, there stood a single candle on a stone pedestal. No one knew how it came to be there, but it was always lit. Its soft golden flame never flickered, not from wind, not from rain, not even when snow covered the forest floor like a blanket. Many travelers had walked through the woods, but only those who were truly tired, truly in need of peace, ever found the candle. One chilly evening, a young girl named Lila wandered into the woods. She was searching for something, though she did not know where. The trees seemed to guide her, their trunks tall and kind, their branches swaying slowly above her as if pointing the way forward. She walked and walked until she reached a clearing bathed in moonlight, and there in the very center stood the candlelight's light was warm and welcoming, and when Leela stepped closer she felt as though the world had gone completely still. She sat beside the candle, and though she didn't speak, it felt as if the candle was listening. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly, and not the way the trees breathed, the way the earth hummed beneath her. And in that moment memories came floating back, not loud or fast, just gentle like leaves drifting down. She remembered laughter and songs her mother used to hum. She remembered the warmth of a blanket and the taste of sweet tea on cold days. The candle glowed brighter as if it too remembered these things. Leela felt tears touch her cheeks, not from sadness but from the soft, quiet joy of remembering. The forest around her seemed to sigh, a peaceful sigh, like it too was resting. After a while Leela stood up, the candle still burning, just as calm and steady as when she found it, whispered thank you and turned back the way she committed. Trees gently opened a path and stars above peeked through the branches, guiding her home. And though she left the candle behind, its light stayed with her in her heart, a steady warmth she could carry always, like a soft glow in the dark. And in the forest the candle still waits for the next traveler who needs to remember that peace is never far away. There was a place far beyond the hills where the sun always rose gently and the mist never hurried to leave the morning. This place was quiet and still, a hidden garden made entirely of smooth, round stones. Some were the size of apples, others as large as sleeping bears. They were stacked and scattered with care, as if someone long ago had arranged them in a peaceful patano. One lived near the garden. No one spoke of it in towns or villages, but the birds knew of it, and so did the wind. And sometimes the wind would carry the story to curious ears. And day a boy named Samuel followed the breeze. It whispered through the grass, it tugged at his sleeves and led him gently through fields and across streams until he arrived at the edge of the stone garden, stepped inside and felt the world slow down. His footsteps made no sound on the smooth stones, and his thoughts became quiet too. Walked between towers of perfectly balanced rocks, some painted with soft moss, others warmed by sunlight. He found a flat stone and sat down, his eyes exploring the quiet shapes around him. A soft bird call echoed from a nearby tree, and Samuel listened, not just to the sound but to the silence around it. The longer he stayed, the more he began to feel as if the garden was listening too, as if every stone held a memory, a gentle wish, a forgotten dream. Reached out and touched one. It was cool and still, but in that moment he saw a flicker of an image. A girl laughing, running through tall grass, her hands full of flowers. In the stone showed a different memory, a quiet elder sitting beside a stream, humming a song that only the water seemed to know. Samuel realized this garden was made of more than stones. It was built from memories left by those who had visited in dreams or in moments of quiet wandering. The garden held them all, not like secrets but like soft lanterns glowing in substances. The sky turned golden. Samuel stood. He had no stone to leave behind, but he gently placed his hand on one, and in his heart he whispered a memory of his own, a peaceful walk by the river with his dog. The sun warmed, the air sweetened Just like that, the stone felt warmer under his fingers. Holding his memory with quiet kindness, turned and walked back through the garden of the stones, watching over him as if to say, "We will remember." And when Samuel looked back one last time, he smiled because he knew he had found a place where peace would always live, waiting silently for those who needed it most. High above the sleepy mountains where the stars drift slowly through the sky, the moon once shone with a soft golden light. She watched over oceans and forests, deserts and meadows, bringing comfort to creatures great and small. But one night, the moon felt tired, not sad, not lonely, just quiet, and her glow began to faded stars. Noticed first, they twinkled gently beside her, asking if she was all right. The moon smiled softly and said, "I just need rest. Even light needs time to breathe." Her on a hill, surrounded by lavender fields, a girl named Leela looked up. She saw the pale moon growing dim and felt a whisper inside her heart. A whisper that said, "Go." Leela walked into the night, barefoot on the cool earth, guided by fireflies and soft breezes. She followed the silver path of starlight until she stood beneath the quiet moon. "Hello, moon," she whispered. "I brought you something." In her hands, she held a tiny jar filled with soft glowing memories, laughter with her grandmother, the way her cat purred beside her when it rained, a warm cup of tea on winter mornings, the sound of wind through tall trees. "These are pieces of light," she said. "They belong to you." Tooth Moon listened, and her light shimmered faintly, a quiet thank you. In Silverthorn came a fox, silent as the night. He placed a feather on the grass. "This is from the bird who sings before sunrise. She sings because you light her way." He said. An owl arrived with a pebble from a stream where water sang lullabies under moonlight. A deer left a single leaf from the tree where dreams begin. Each gift was small but filled with love. Moon glowed a little more, not bright, just enough to smile. She realized her light had never truly left. It had simply wandered, and now it was returning bit by bit through every gentle gift. Leela sat beneath, her eyes closing slowly, and a sleep took her gently. The moon watched over her, strong again but calm, and from that night on, whenever someone gave a kind word or remembered a quiet joy, a little of the moon's glow would return. So now, as you rest beneath the night sky, close your eyes and remember, even the moon needs time to restand. In resting, she finds her light again. In a far and peaceful land there flowed a quiet river. It was not wide and it was not deep, but it was gentle, and it whispered as it moved. River lived between green hills where butterflies danced and old trees stood with open arms. Each day it flowed calmly over smooth stones, past sleepy villages, and into golden meadows. But the river's favorite time was night. When the moon rose high and the world became still, the river would begin to whisper soft stories to the starseed homes. It told of the otters who played in its shallows, splashing and spinning until they drifted into dreams. Autumns, it spoke of the wind that brushed the water's surface like a lullaby made of air. Summertimes, it shared memories of raindrops falling gently from the sky, joining its path and continuing the journey together. On night, a child named Emi wandered near. She had wandered from her small cottage, drawn by the sound, not knowing why, only that the whisper made her feel so fresh. Sat beside the river, her toes touching the cool water, her eyes closing. River spoke to her not in words but in warmth, in soft movement, in the hush of water sliding over stone. Night told her, "You are safe, you are loved, you are part of this Kalmemi." Smiled in her sleep, her breathing slow, her heart quiet. Stars above twinkled as if they too listened, and the moon leaned close, its silver glow brushing the treetops. River kept whispering on, never rushing, never stopping, only flowing, only soothing. Every pebble in its bed knew the stories every fish beneath its surface dreamed to its rhythm. Now as you lie still and your thoughts drift like leaves on water, the whispering river flows to you. To it says, "Rest now, there is nothing to hold, nothing to fear, only peace." Close your eyes, let the river carry you to a quiet place where dreams begin. The moon was high in the sky, casting silver light on the railway tracks. The night was calm and the stars shimmered as the night train to Quietville arrived, soft and slow, with a gentle hum that filled the stillness. The train, everything was peaceful. Soft lights glowed above velvet seats and curtains swayed gently at the windows as the train moved through the countryside. A boy named Leo stepped aboard, his eyes sleepy, his blanket wrapped around his shoulders. He had never taken the night train before, but something told him this was the perfect night to go. The conductor smiled, his voice low and kind. "Welcome aboard, little dreamer. Find a seat and rest. We'll be in Quietville." Before you know it, Leo found a seat by the window and watched as the world passed by. Trees standing tall like guards of the night, lakes reflecting the stars like mirrors. The train swayed gently as if rocking him like a cradle, its rhythm steady, its sound a whisper. Saw a field where fireflies danced, their glow like tiny lanterns in the dark. He saw mountains far away, their peaks wrapped in soft mist. He saw rivers that glowed under the moon, flowing calmly like stories in a dream. With each passing mile the world became quieter, softer, like a dream slowly unfolding, and Leo felt lighter, his thoughts fading, his heart. Passengers around him were drifting to an old woman with a cat curled in her lap, a little girl hugging a stuffed bear, a man with a book resting on his chest, each one smiling in sleep, each one carried gentle life. Train never hurried, it moved with the grace of a lullaby, passing through tunnels of starlight, over bridges that seemed to float in the sky, into a world made of Just as Leo's eyes closed, the train whispered Quietville ahead. Soft beds, deep dreams, gentle mornings. Leo smiled. His breathing slow, his blanket warm. The train rolled on and on into the deepest peace. And now you too can close your eyes. Feel the train beneath you, steady and calm, carrying you gently, quietly to a place where dreams live. A Quietville awaits, and sleep is already here.